That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range, Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content, learn about hot new podcasts, and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fans. Can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can hear every NFL game live as it's happening. Or catch it on demand, anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Welcome back. Let's catch you up on a few stories that should be on your radar today. It is time for Rapid Fire. And here to break down today's headlines are Julia Borston, Leslie Picker, and Morgan Brennan. Welcome, everybody. First up, Facebook debuting a new feature today. It's a news feed, but for real this time. The News tab will be rolled out to a few 100,000 users in the U.S. Facebook will pay some of the approved publishers whose content will appear in the app, and that includes CNBC and NBC News. Feed will be curated by human editors, but the tab will personalize articles that reflect your interest over time. My hot take on this, I think no one's going to use it.
Well, the question, though, is if Facebook's going to encourage people to use it or drive them to the news tab, and also how much people sort of turn to Facebook for everything. It's really interesting that right now, as we speak, Mark Zuckerberg is on stage at the Paley Center with Robert Thompson, who's the CEO of News Corp. And Robert Thompson has been a huge critic of Facebook.
And Google.
And Google. And Rupert Murdoch, of course, controlling shareholder of News Corp, he has said over the years, Facebook should pay a carriage fee to publishers. They're making money off publishers. It's time.
It's like the old TV model.
For years, as Mark Zuckerberg said, no, we're not going to do it. This is a real about face that Facebook is doing here.
Do you know how much they're paying?
So they are paying some publishers nothing, because the real value is the traffic that they're driving to their websites, because you'll get advertising revenue from those eyeballs, as well as potentially the ability to convert people to being paying subscribers.
Right.
Because there'll be one article for free, and then you could click through and
sign up for more.
Yeah, sign up for more. So it really is a reversal for Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is on stage right now talking about how he's so committed to backing professional journalism. We have to remember that this comes at a time when you just had Congress, grilling him on the fact that there's a spread of fake news, and what are they doing to protect election integrity?
I'm curious what you guys think. I mean, it's great for them to launch. It's great for the publishers involved. Again, will anybody? You have to go click on the other little tab to open it up. And Apple News has been very successful, but will this work? Will people read it?
I think that's a big question, and what's the upside for Facebook in doing this? Because it kind of leads you down another path of curation, another path where you're in control of something. Kind of opens you up to some more criticism from people. I know that Breitbart is on the platform, for example. It's one of those sites that Julia mentioned that won't be paid for being on the platform. But it also, if you've got someone at Facebook that's kind of curating these things, does it open you up to criticism from, the far right, the far left about whether, you've got enough balance in the system, and if you're curating it for
and if they tailor it based on your political interests over time, Morgan, then does it go back to the, you're only seeing what you want to see issue that they've been under fire for?
Here's what I think. I think we've seen this playbook before, and it's in music. We saw this happen with the music industry, and we saw it happen with the streamers. Hang with me here for a second. We saw the traditional means of revenue generation for the music publishers and also the record companies
newspapers or CDs
out by new tech coming in. And then what happened was things died down, the business model started to shift, and the two started to work together a little bit and became like the resurgence for the music industry.
With the Spotify
I think this is the beginning of that happening for news and public.
You know, I like that hopeful take so much. I'm just going to leave it right there. Maybe it will be, and it'll all be fine. And I should stop being such a cynic. Let's talk about that we already did that. I was talking about cynic. Let's talk about this one. Okay, it's a small trade for a stock, but a giant leap for a brand new market of space tourism. Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic is set to go public Monday under the ticker SPCE. It will be the first ever publicly traded space tourism company, and it's debuting even though it has yet to complete one of its flights with a paying customer.
Yes, with a paying customer. It has been to the edge of space twice in some of these test flights. They are expecting to actually start doing this service for their paying customers sometime next year. This is a merger that is taking place and is supposed to close before the end of the day.
It's a SPAC
today.
with Chamath.
With Chamath Palihapitiya and Social Capital. $1.5 billion valuation. They do have more than 600 customers that have signed up. $80 million in deposits so far. Some pretty aggressive forecasts to potentially be profitable on an annualized basis by August of 2021.
Why are we
you're
talking
right, service
about
has to
profits?
start.
They don't even have a business
My
yet.
question is, how many of these millions of people are actually going to make it up there? What is their capacity, right? How many people will they actually be taking up to space every year?
And I think that's going to be the key question. I mean, what it's going to be is it's going to be 6 paying customers and 2 pilots for each of these flights. Okay. And so I think the flights will probably have some space between them, at least to start, because you're going to be doing testing and everything else, and then they'll pick up speed. And I think, or I guess frequency, tempo, and then within a couple of years, potentially, the price starts to come down and you see it become more accessible to more people. But the long-term play here, if you can stick with it, let's see what investors have to say. The long-term play here is going to be hypersonic travel and how you travel more quickly around the globe. And this is part of the reason that Boeing has also invested $20 million into this company.
It's almost like a biotech company, these pre-revenue, pre-profit biotech companies. We've seen some that aren't, that are valued at $1.5 billion. Sure. It's not totally out of the realm of possibility. But, I guess they've already got
there's reason to be skeptical. We're still early days, even though this company's been around and been in development for
It'll be a good test of investor appetite for the IPO market.
And it's a direct listing, essentially, because of the structure and the fact that it's merging with a SPAC.
Well, what's notable about this is it is kind of a new way of getting public, because this was a private company that did a reverse merger into the public markets. And, we've got people trying the direct listings. Obviously, the traditional model for IPOs is under fire these days. So if this is successful from an IPO standpoint,
more might do it.
Absolutely.
Kind of related to this, Tesla had a great week. We saw it spike more than 20% after its earnings. It also said it was ahead of schedule on the Model Y, and that its Shanghai Gigafactory is building full vehicles. The new chair, Robin Denholm, was on Squawk Box today, and here's what she had to say. They were talking about Tesla's big goals. Take a listen.
To achieve what Tesla has achieved over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years, you have to set audacious goals and big goals to actually, and then have everybody in the company work like crazy to get there.
So that's why I like talking about this after talking about space tourism. Okay, audacious goals, big goals. We've seen that work very well in the case of a company like Tesla, not so well in the case of a company like WeWork. So in other words, and she said, look, you have to have audacious goals and then the workforce to meet them, or they have to be realistic, but it can't be Theranos.
One thing we talk a lot about working on the Disruptor 50 list, which I get to work on every year, is this idea, we get hundreds and hundreds of nominations, and then we see the companies that manage to take a disruptive idea, an audacious goal, and turn it into a sustainable long-term business. And this transition from crazy idea to profitable business is something which Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn and PayPal investor, talks about as being the transition from being a pirate to being in the Navy. And the idea that anyone who's going to grow
how often does that transition happen?
But I mean, for instance, it's like, Uber starts off putting cars on roads before they have deals with the local governments, or Airbnb, and then they have to start negotiating with the government. So a lot of these big startups go through this transition. They have an audacious goal. You have to figure out how to play by the rules to make it work.
Look, the original iPhone was an audacious goal. It took a ton of work with AT&T and everybody to pull that off.
But I think if you are a publicly traded company and you have stockholders that you have to, appease, you have to set those audacious goals, but then also meet them. And if not, you will be punished as a result. And I think it's also worth noting that, Elon Musk has had some audacious goals that he hasn't been able to achieve that have upset shareholders. Right. Actually, that is how the chairwoman, Robin Denholm, has got her job in the first place, because he tweeted this audacious goal of being taken private at $420 a share without any actual funding secured for that take private. And that is what cost him the chairmanship, and she got that job.
The flip side of this is that we have heard some of the same type of commentary, including today and even earlier this week from Gwen Shotwell over at SpaceX. This seems to be the model for Elon Musk, and certainly, at least with SpaceX, it is a model that has worked. And you could argue, looking at Tesla's numbers this week, it works to a certain extent for Tesla as well, although not always on time. Well, it tends to meet those goals, but not usually on time.
And that it goes right into the next little news item here, but it has never been easier to put $1 into one of these high-flying ideas, because Square is actually using the Cash App, which has become super popular, to include a new functionality to let people trade for free and for amounts as little as $1. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of both Square and Twitter, saying now anyone can buy $42 or $1 of Berkshire Hathaway instantly and for free right in the Cash App. This is the innovation that's allowing people to, what I actually like about this story is that the Cash App, does it make it more popular and kind of fun and interesting and cool or whatever, however you want to describe it, to do stock trading, whether it's in the new Virgin IPO or whatever, with the, in an app like
It really
this.
seems like the barriers to entry to investing, whether it's in buying stocks or just, creating some sort of a savings account, the barriers to entry have really come down. And there are so many of these companies in the fintech space that are particularly appealing to millennials, making it so you don't have to go meet with a broker. You could do it all instantaneously and really encouraging people to invest and save in a different way.
And you don't have to shell out thousands of dollars for, an investment like you used to have to do. These days, you could put $1 into Berkshire Hathaway A shares.
Weird to me. I mean, what do you end up owning? I mean, it's great. Absolutely. Democratization, especially stocks, on average, the price has never been so high. But I wonder about the structure of a lot of this.
Yeah, it's going to be a curious one to see how all this plays out. And it's especially interesting that you're seeing this type of offering, because I think so many of the companies that people do want to be potentially investing in, like maybe say an Amazon, where they're trading for thousands of dollars, or in the case of Berkshire, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It sort of speaks to part of the reason that those stocks are as expensive as they are. But also, we talk so much about income inequality. Part of the reason we've seen the richer get rich and those in the bottom sort of stay stagnant is because of asset appreciation over the last 10 years. And there are many people, including young adults, who have not been able to partake. And so I think this is great, because it actually makes it easier. As you mentioned, democratization. It's a lower barrier of entry and enables more people to be able to invest in. And
I mean, look, if you lose some money because you picked the wrong side, there's an education process there too.
And it gets more people just into this, the market.
Yeah, for better or worse. Finally, before we go, we have to ask if tipping is immoral, because that's the question David Brooks is asking in the New York Times today. The opinion columnist says the tipping system is not a meritocracy, that it inflames racist and sexist dynamics, it widens class divisions, and he acknowledges that tipping's the world we should live in, says you should still tip 20 to 30%. The other reason why this was interesting today is because it comes on a new report on Uber that says going over 40 million rides, customers tip just 16% of the time for about $3. I rarely tip.
That was surprising to me.
Rarely tip on Uber.
But one thing
it didn't start
I don't
that
like,
way.
I don't like the whole tipping thing on Uber, because then there's the tie to like your rating and how you rank as anyway.
Yeah. But I think it's been interesting that in restaurants, though, I've increasingly seen restaurants say, either they say recommended tip 20%, and here's how much that is. They write out the dollar value to add, or they just add it on. I've been to so many restaurants where they say, we've added an 18% gratuity. Anything additional is up to you, but we just want to let you know we're doing this to spread out the tip to the back, to the kitchen staff that doesn't usually get to participate in tipping the way that waiters do.
But you can do that with a pool house, right? And there are restaurants where you pool things, but you're still operating off of tips, and you bring some to the back of the house. I mean, have any of you eaten at restaurants in parts of Europe where there isn't tipping? Service is not quite the same as like here in the U.S.
Union Square Hospitality got rid of tipping a few years ago, and their service is oftentimes, with exceptions, impeccable. And, I've certainly been to restaurants in New York where there is tipping, and, it isn't
put
quite the
myself through
incentive that it
college,
should be.
bartending and working in restaurants.
But Morgan,
and I got news for you. That tipping.
But
it got me through.
You're the young blonde. That's what
Wait a second.
Do you read the piece?
Wait a second. I was a brunette. I had black hair. I had no hair. I had blue hair, purple hair, red hair, and pink hair while I was waiting tables. Thank you very much.
Tips, though.
It was the same across the board. And I did well at tips because I hustled. And you know what? The life lessons I learned there have been extremely important to this job and everything else I do.
Amen. And I want to see pictures. Thank you all, Julia Borston, Leslie Picker, and Morgan Brennan. Coming up, WeWork's demise has already become a case study for business students at the University of Michigan. The professor leading the class will join us with some lessons his students are taking from this next.
Thank you.
And Doug.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Be part of the Perfume Shop's exclusive buy one, get the second half price gifting weekend. Buy any perfume in-store or online and you'll get the second half price. Thinking of a present? Think the Perfume Shop for the ultimate finishing touch. Offer ends Sunday the 27th of October. Visit theperfumeshop.com for more details.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want dramas, I've got Emmy-winning shows. Oh, I know, so fancy. Horrors, no problem. It's not real, it's not real, it's not real. Or how about sports? These games are unmissable. Get in. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
Air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Welcome back to The Exchange. WeWork has gone from Silicon Valley darling to a cash-strapped company that needed a bailout. Its valuation dropping from nearly $50 billion earlier this year to less than $8. And just the other day, our own Dom Chu suggested the company could serve as a valuable lesson for business students.
What I would say is an interesting development here, and this will be a great Harvard business case study later on, forcing out the founder and CEO, taking over the entire company and doing it so for a discount valuation from where it was just 6 months ago. And if not, they've lost a lot of money.
Well, my next guest is a loyal Exchange viewer who emailed us after seeing that to say he's already using WeWork as a case study. Joining me now is Eric Gordon, a professor at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. It's great to have you, Professor, and I chuckled at what you said students were taking away from this. They were asking, so how bizarre or antisocial can a founder be and still be effective and investable?
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they're trying to calibrate themselves, how rotten can I be?
Right. But what are you hearing from students when you talk about this in class?
Students are actually amazed that professionals, the best VCs in the world, that top investors could be so stupid, at least in my students' mind. Now, I know some of them, and they're not stupid, but they're dumbfounded, like, how can this possibly happen?
So they're not necessarily, I mean, I don't know how many of them have experience in a WeWork, but they are great places. So nobody thinks, you know what, the details being what they may, the end product is a good product, and, no one's taking that tack?
No, well, so students love that kind of setup. In fact, we have it at our school. We have all of these shared spaces and workrooms, and that's how they live. They live communally, so they get that part of it. The part they don't get is the part that blew it up. Is there a business model? How does a guy like this get to run a company? How does he get total control? That's the part that mystifies them. They actually like the sort of the shared space idea.
What is the story in terms of this as a case study? We are still in the thick of it. I mean, we haven't yet seen what happens. We don't know if WeWork comes out of this in a few years as a $20 billion company or as a zero.
Yeah, that makes it fun because this could either be SoftBank's huge folly where we write another case talking about how what a big mistake it was for SoftBank to throw good money after bad, or we write the second half of the case and we say, boy, were they geniuses, just as Dom said on the air. They got in, they got the stock cheaper, they got control cheaper. So we don't know what the ending is, but what we know now is things that we should look at in terms of management, governance, business model, and valuation. So we've already learned some pretty big lessons.
What would you say is the kind of the main one here?
I think you have to really look at the governance thing, because you can't predict what the future will be. Guys can go berserk, although I think this guy was a little berserko to begin with. But the governance thing, where somebody has complete control, and the only way you get them out is by buying them out at some price which may turn out to be cheap, that's Dom's thesis, or turn out to be ridiculous. You shouldn't be in that position. And Kelly, there's a weird thing here. The same VC, that's one of the lead VCs this time around in WeWork, was the VC that got into the wrestling match with Travis Kalanick, the Uber guy, who didn't work out, and they had to get out. So, do they learn?
Well, we'll see if your students do, at least. Professor, thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Professor Eric Gordon, and thank you for watching. And meanwhile, wildfires are tearing through parts of California again. It's turning the focus back to the utility company PG&E. We're going to talk about the role it may have played in starting these fires next.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Be honest. How much attention are you really paying to this advert? 25%? Maybe 30% if you're sitting in traffic and the kids have stopped arguing. What about 0%? Well, now's the time to give 0% attention. Because for a limited time only, the entire Mini range is available with 0% APR. All you need to decide is which Mini is perfect for you. Good to know we've now got 100% of your attention. Search 0% Mini to find out more. Who's in? Minimum 25% deposit on 24-month select agreements for new models ordered by 30th of September 2019 at participating retailers, subject to availability. UK residents age 18+. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply if you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply. Mini UK, a trading name of BMW UK Limited, is a credit broker, not a lender.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the Van Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right.
NBA today to start listening.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio happenings across the app. Explore exclusive content.
It's called Indie.
Learn about the hottest new podcasts.
The Nostalgia Mixtape, a new podcast hosted by yours truly, Savannah Shroudy.
And get alerted when the big game's about to begin.
This Sunday is Championship Sunday, when we'll find out which two teams are going to play for the Lombardi Trophy.
Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Swinging a line drive, base hit into right field. Way back goes this one. It's got a chance. It's going, and long gone up onto the railroad tracks. Welcome to the World Series.
The excitement of the Fall Classic is here, and you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium. The action begins tonight with Game 3 between the American League champion Houston Astros and NL champion Washington Nationals. Listen live at 8 Eastern as two of Major League Baseball's most storied franchises look to bring home the World Series title. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Welcome back. Multiple wildfires are raging across parts of California, with the focus once again shifting to utility PG&E and the possibility that its equipment could have played a role in igniting the Kincaid fire in Northern California. The pictures you see here are from this fire. Fires are also still burning in Southern California. That's where NBC's Sarah Harmon is, and she joins me now with the very latest from that location. Sarah?
Hi, Kelly. We're at the Tick Fire just north of Los Angeles. You can see behind me, this is an active situation with firefighters on the scene. Just 5% containment at this point. And firefighters have been battling fierce winds, 30 to 40 miles an hour all morning long in Santa Clarita, with gusts of up to 70 miles per hour expected this afternoon. That is a big deal, Kelly, because it means a hot ember from a home like this one can get picked up by those strong winds, blow onto the roof of a nearby house, and put this entire neighborhood in danger. 40,000 people are under a mandatory evacuation order at this point. 15,000 homes are at risk. And despite those sobering statistics, we have been talking to residents this morning who have defied the evacuation order because they want to check on their homes. Kelly?
Sarah, thank you. And the California governor has just declared a state of emergency in Sonoma and in Los Angeles counties because of these fires. Appreciate your report. Sarah Harmon from NBC. Up next, Instagram may be full of influencers, but just how many of them actually use the products they hawk? That's up for debate. Up next, the founder of an app featuring real customers and brand enthusiasts joins me to discuss the new way to influence. We'll be right back.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want movies, I've got blockbusters. Comedy coming up, way better than the dad jokes in this house. Or how about dramas? I've got all the big shows from Sky Atlantic. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus month passes auto renew. Terms apply.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
Heavily covered, touchdown.
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game, starting with the Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and closing out Sunday night with the Packers at the Chiefs at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
All the way to the checkerboard. Touchdown.
Despite the loss last week, the Badgers still control their Big Ten destiny. Wisconsin will face a formidable opponent as they try to get back on track with the undefeated and third-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes this week. The action starts at 9 a.m. Eastern this Saturday. Just search college to listen today.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
Air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
This year, companies are on track to pour over $4 billion into the online influencer economy. But it's difficult to calculate if this kind of advertising pays off. Some skeptical brands are starting to pull back on their influencer spending. My next guest startup helps them find a new sphere of influence. With me now is Amber Atherton. She's a former star of the British reality TV show Made in Chelsea and the CEO of marketing software company Zyper. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So this actually started when you were on TV and brands would approach you to be a quote-unquote influencer, right?
Yes, correct. So I've definitely seen the dark underbelly of the influence industry and how much trust has really been eroded with consumers to the point now where only 4% of global consumers trust an influencer's recommendations. So I thought when founding this company, there's got to be a way for brands to really identify their true fans and passionate customers who can really build that trust.
Sure. The Wall Street Journal shone a light on that this week, talking about how at least $1.5 billion they've, according to one study, of money was kind of wasted on influencers. So in a way, you are still looking for influencers. You just want them to be authentic ones who are already using products. And then you say to the brands, hey, look, we found these women, these men, whomever out there, tap into them directly. Tell us how this works.
Yeah, exactly. So Zyper's proprietary technology is all about helping brands identify their top 1% of fans and customers. So we ingest social media data, customer data, and use proprietary computer vision to really identify on an aesthetic content level as well as on an engagement level. Does this person have the right brand affinities to represent this brand in a public sphere? But also, how can the brand tap into those fans to sort of co-evolve? We see a lot of our customers do product development with their fans, and it's a really lean way to connect to Gen Z, like a focus group 2.0.
Sure. Some of the brands that you've mentioned you work with, Calvin Klein, Kellogg's, Unilever, Lyft, Nike. So if I'm on Instagram, is it possible that a good friend of mine could be a sort of a stealth influencer because she really does like the product and I wouldn't even know?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really looking at everyday, normal, creative consumers who genuinely love a brand. So yes, you may have a friend that you see talking about Tom's shoes, and then the brand can finally actually recognize that customer, because until now, without Zyper, they can only recognize really their top spenders or people who have a lot of followers. Whereas we're really saying it's not about the number of followers you have. It's about, do you truly love that brand, and how can you work with them?
Will it require new disclosure so that the average Joes and Janes out there are saying, you know, I do love this product, but now I'm actually working with the company?
It is critical that there is transparency. Otherwise, we know that that's just going to add to this erosion of trust. So everybody who is in an active community for a brand is disclosing that they are essentially collaborating with the brand.
How big can this business get, do you think?
Well, hopefully very big. I mean, we've just raised a Series A, so we're really sort of doubling down on building a really great product that is helping brands really connect to their fans on a global level.
And what's the biggest success story you've had so far?
Gosh, well, we've just launched an incredible community with Dior, the Dior Beauty Lovers community. It's a user-generated community that's now driving 10 times the engagement of the official account. So, great success story there.
Well, I'm sure the companies like the authentic influencers better than the ones everyone's ignoring. Amber, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so
much. It's good
much.
to hear about it, and I'll be looking more closely now with what my friends say they like on Instagram. Appreciate it very much. Amber Atherton is the CEO of Zyper. And that does it for The Exchange today. I'll go join Tyler and Melissa for Power Lunch starting now.
Thank you, Kelly. We'll see you in just a moment. I'm Melissa Lee. Here's what's new at 2 on Power Lunch. The race for records. The S&P 500 just points away from all-time high as trade optimism and earnings send stocks higher. But could it be the Fed next week that pushes us to new heights? And don't call it a comeback. Shares of Amazon heading for positive territory after being down as much as 9% last night. What has investors buying this dip? We'll explain. And later, NBA legend Charles Barkley slamming Vice President Mike Pence for his criticism of the NBA's business in China. We've got the shocking comments. Power Lunch starts right now.
And welcome, everybody, to Power Lunch for a Friday afternoon. I'm Tyler Matheson. Glad you could be with us. And why not? It's a record rally. The Dow is up about 200 points right now. As you see, they're about 2/3 of a point. The S&P right near its record intraday high, and it did briefly cross above its all-time closing high. So it is a day for the record books. And check out some of these housing-related stocks also hitting fresh highs. They're one of the drivers in this market. It isn't all the FANGs. In fact, no way. Lennar, Pultehome, Masco, Sherwin-Williams. Have all the paint you want, Kelly.
The new leadership, Tyler, thanks. A big reason stocks are rising right now, the U.S. and China making apparent headway on a trade deal. Let's get Kayla Tausche with the latest word from these talks. Kayla?
Kelly, principals in U.S.-China trade talks held a call this morning. A readout from the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative said the call made, quote, headway on specific issues, and the two sides are close to finalizing some sections of the agreement. Discussions will go on continuously. Today, President Trump confirmed that China is asking for those December tariffs to be canceled in order to move forward.
Good deal.
They'd like to see some reductions in tariffs. They'd like to see some tariffs that are scheduled to go on very soon. They'd like to see them not go on. But China, they really, look, you know it, they really want to make a deal. They're going to be buying much more farm product than anybody ever thought possible.
Behind the scenes, not everyone is sold, according to 3 sources close to talks. Trade hawk Peter Navarro has been fighting the Phase 1 deal, urging President Trump to make China recommit to language on intellectual property protections that it shelved back in May. According to these sources, Navarro's effort has been unsuccessful so far. We should note Navarro, the White House, the U.S. Trade Representative, and the Treasury Department did not comment on that issue, but certainly interesting to note behind the scenes that not everyone is happy with this. Guys?
All right, Kayla, thank you. Kayla Tausche. In addition to those optimistic comments on trade, there are other factors sending stocks higher today. Bob Bassani is tracking things at the New York Stock Exchange. Bob?
And I agree with Kayla. Trade optimism is the number one reason we've been moving up, but there's a couple of other factors. Let me lay them out for you. Besides that trade optimism, number 2, the U.S. consumer is holding up very well, and we saw that in comments from Visa. We saw it from Capital One. Strong guidance from Intel, I think, really makes a difference. Let me show you some of these semiconductors. Now, remember, Texas Instruments was an outlier. They're in autos. They're in China heavily, a little industrial space. They were an outlier, but Intel was good. Lam Research guided up. Taiwan Semiconductor. These are semiconductor capital equipment companies. ASML was good. These are the guys who make the equipment. Generally, their commentary was excellent, making a lot of people feel a little bit better about where the semiconductor business is going. So, yes, you got autos weak. Data centers for Intel, strong as well. There's Visa, Capital One. Both reported very good numbers. Visa gave 2020 revenue guidance for the first time. That was very strong, and they think the consumer spending is going to be strong as well. Capital One, essentially a credit card company, also said the same thing. Tyler, back to you.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. We are just inches away from record highs on the S&P 500, and we went into that territory briefly earlier today. Will be the moment of truth for the markets with the busiest earnings week of the season so far, and the highly anticipated Fed rate cut decision that's coming up. Is the market heading for new heights? Let's ask Jason Pride, Glenn Mead, Chief Investment Officer of Private Clients, and Ron Insana, Schroders North America Senior Advisor and a CNBC investor. Jason, what do you say?
I'm an investor.
What did I say?
Investor.
What did I say? Advisor?
Contributor.
Oh, contributor.
I'm a CNBC investor. I have no stake in CNBC at the moment. As far as I know, it's wholly owned by Comcast and NBC.
Yeah, it is and will remain so.
Yeah.
Jason, back to you after Ron interrupts me and corrects me appropriately.
You got to get these things right, Tyler, right?
It's the details, Jason. It's the details that you have to get right. So I've completely lost what I was going to ask you. So we're at record highs now. Is the market likely to keep moving higher from here? And what's the catalyst that pushes it?
Yeah, Tyler, I think the number one catalyst is the ongoing expansion. So long as this economic expansion continues, so long as corporations continue to make money, more money, year after year after year, that should eventually lead to higher numbers for every single stock market and higher highs as we go along. Now, when we're talking about it on a more near-term basis, like this week, we have a couple of things that are backing that up. We have some decent earnings reports. We have a Fed that is providing stimulus, and we have what on the surface appears, and maybe I'm a little bit skeptical as to whether it'll ultimately turn out to be correct or not. On the surface, it appears that some of the trade tensions are loosening, and we're getting closer and closer to actual trade deals put in place. So that's enough sentiment to buoy this market upward in what appears to be an ongoing expansion.
All right, I turn to CNBC investor Ron Insana.
I have a 5% stake. I should disclose.
What say you? I mean, the market's basically been stuck in a range for 18 months.
Even longer. I mean, January of 18.
January of 18.
20,
so,
22
20
months,
I guess. But it's been flirting with all-time highs here.
And we've touched them and gone above them, on several different occasions in the last 20 months or so. I still think that we're going to stay this way for a while. I mean, there was a movie once, you may remember this, Don't Raise the Bridge, Lower the River. That's what we've been doing with earnings now every single quarter. So it's getting easier and easier to cross when expectations keep falling, and they're being cut again for 2020. So as long as that's a factor, I mean, sure, stocks can, perform better against weakened expectations. The trade deal, and I share Jason's skepticism that it's going to happen the way the president described it, and a Fed rate cut is probably priced in. So I think we're stuck in this range, and it's still, a question of
it's a good range to be in.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. It's better than a 20%
3 to
decline.
5%, one way or the other. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Jason, you're pretty defensively positioned yourself, neutral equities, underweight bonds, but overweight cash and alternatives. Why?
Well, I mean, the neutral equities for us, that's just a recognition of where we are in the cycle. We're in the 10th, 11th year of this expansion. We are starting to see some chinks in the armor of the economy and profits, and therefore we don't want to be over the skis equity investment-wise. The cash and bonds difference, that's basically taking money away from low-yielding bonds where you have duration that could swing the wrong direction on you and putting in more of a safe harbor in terms of cash and alternative investments from a perspective of generating that similar sort of level of return, maybe even a little bit more without that sort of risk of fluctuations.
Is this your highest level of cash in a while? I mean, can you sort of give me a qualitative assessment of where you stand on cash?
So I wouldn't say that it's the highest level of cash that we've had in a while. We're overweight both cash and alternatives effectively. So it's not actually that dramatic of a position yet. We could take that far more dramatically, but we aren't doing that at this point in time, mainly due to the fact that rates could actually and are likely to remain low for probably a fairly long period of time. And it's basically a rate differential play that we're playing on a near-term basis.
What's the catalyst, Ron? We asked that to Jason a moment ago that could send the market up or down by a significant amount.
I think it would have to be a meaningful, concrete trade accord between the United States and China. Nothing cosmetic.
Or the failure of such.
Yeah, and that would be a catalyst of the downside. I'm still a little concerned that we're in the breakdown conundrum here as far as equities are concerned, and interest rates as well. So I don't see anything in the near term short of that deal that really moves the needle. As I said, the rate cut's probably priced in, unless the Fed comes out and says, listen, we're really going to blow quantitative easing out the door. We're going to cut again in December. That would be a catalyst for probably a meaningful 5% move higher from here.
All right, Ron, thank you very much. Jason Pride, have a great weekend. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
And we've got breaking news on the size of the federal deficit. Elon Moy has all the details. Elon?
Kelly, the federal deficit was $984 billion in fiscal year 2019. That is a 26% increase over the previous year, but still short of that $1 trillion mark. Now, that is partly because there was a rebound in corporate tax receipts during the second half of the year. For 2019, corporate tax revenue was $230 billion. That's a 12% increase over last year. Individual income tax revenue was up 2% to $1.7 trillion. In addition, the government also collected almost $71 billion in customs duties. Those are tariffs. That is a 70% jump over the previous year. Now, these numbers are a relief to the Trump administration, which has been criticized for the cost of its tax cut. Meanwhile, Treasury had forecast previously that the deficit would hit $1 trillion this year. But in a statement, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said that these numbers are evidence that Trump's economic agenda is working. And to put the nation on a truly sustainable path would require enacting proposals to cut wasteful and irresponsible spending. Guys, the latest projections from the CBO now has the government hitting that $1 trillion mark next year. Back over to you.
Elon, thank you very much. Elon Moy in D.C. The Trump Organization, meantime, reportedly considering selling the Trump International Hotel in Washington, which had opened to much fanfare just a couple of years ago. And Robert Frank has that story. Hi, Robert.
It was back in 2016 when they had another big party down on Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, the Trump Organization exploring the sale of Trump International Hotel in Washington. That, of course, is owned by the president. Now, Trump Organization Vice President Eric Trump saying in a statement that the company is considering a sale because, quote, we have received tremendous interest in this hotel since it opened in 2016. But he said ethics also may have played a role, adding, quote, people are objecting to us making so much money on the hotel, and therefore we may be willing to sell. But get this, it could also be a very profitable deal. Now, the Trump Organization has a 6-year lease on the old post office building on Pennsylvania Avenue. They pay $180 million for that lease. The company spent millions renovating, but they are asking $500 million, so they could make between $100 and $200 million if they get their price, which, by the way, would be the most expensive ever paid for a hotel. The president's financial filings showing he received about $40 million in revenue from the hotel last year. That was up about $500,000, second only to Doral in terms of revenue for all of his properties. The hotel, of course, has been the subject of several lawsuits, and congressional inquiries into the president's conflicts of interest and potential breach of the emoluments clause. The president has visited the hotel 23 times since becoming president. Other members of the White House have made nearly 400 trips.
But is it a case of darned if you do, darned if you don't? Because if they hang on to it, we know all of the sort of the problems there. If he sells it and they make a lot of money on it, it sounds like that's also a potential problem.
Yes, but they could sell it for a nominal sum to a blind trust or some other vehicle where it doesn't appear that they're making so much money, or they could sort of temporarily transfer ownership. There are probably other ways to do it that wouldn't attract so much attention.
All right, Robert, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Coming up, shares of Amazon recovering after selling off after yesterday's sell-off. Can the stock keep rallying even as delivery costs soar? And Beyond Meat getting grilled. Shares have lost more than half their value since their peak, but still up 300%, 300% since the IPO. Where do they head next?
You should be mad at Leaf. What if your email was organized by project and not by date? What if everyone looked at the same thing instead of their own inbox? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Forget your fragmented, jumbled inbox and make the change to channels in Slack. Spaces dedicated to individual projects, topics, or teams. All your communication is neatly organized and everyone is on the same page. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
What can you get from Tesco for £1 each this Halloween?
A pumpkin.
More.
A spooky pumpkin cup.
More.
Ghostly balloons. Spine-tingling spider webs. Ghoulish plates and napkins.
More. Yes, it is scary what you can get for just £1 each this Halloween.
Tesco. Every little helps. Available in selected larger stores.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica. Sip margaritas in Mexico. Or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. Atoll protected.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family wants sports, these games are unmissable. Get in. Movies, I've got blockbusters. Or how about reality TV? I can fill that island-shaped hole. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
Oh, look who's home. Long time no see.
You haven't changed a bit.
Come on in. Welcome back.
With genuine BMW expertise, parts, and a convenient range of options to suit you, when it comes to caring for your BMW, there's no place like home. Book your BMW service online 24/7. T's and C's apply, subject to availability, participating retailers only.
Now, let's take a look at you.
Welcome back. Amazon climbing back toward positive territory today after its shares plunged from the company's disappointing quarter late yesterday. Amazon announced that it expects one-day shipping to cost a whopping $1.5 billion during the busy holiday season. That's after they already spent $800 million in the second and third quarters on this initiative. As CEO Jeff Bezos prioritizes growth over profits, should investors stick with the stock? Joining us now is Greg Mellick, equity analyst at Evercore ISI. Greg, great to have you with us. It looks like every analyst on the street has said to buy the dip today, except for maybe one firm, Barclays, I think. Why do you think investors should not be concerned about this latest reinvestment cycle, and what Amazon will actually get, you know, when you take a look at metrics like Prime subscribers and things like that from this investment?
That's the key. Look, there's a leap of faith here, because at the end of the day, Amazon saw their retail share gains decelerate, but they needed to reaccelerate that and there's no better way than going to next day shipping. So they are more than willing to invest billions to reaccelerate that growth, and we saw that again in this third quarter. And the real prize here is getting spend per household up from around $2,500 today to, we think, around $4,000 in the next 3 or 4 years.
Because the average household spends $2,500 a year.
Prime household. So
the average prime household, $2,500. Do they lose money on same day shipments of items?
We think it depends on how you define the cost around it. The key that they want is if they get more people spending more frequently, then they get all the data. And hidden in the numbers, I think this is an important thing to flag for people. Advertising grew more than 45%. That's a business we think could be over $10 billion next year at a very high margin. So you talk about spending billions of dollars and losing it, if you will, on next day shipping. If that gets you the ability to explode your advertising business 45%, it'll start to pay off in a couple of years.
So the return on investment might be households spend even more than they already spend because of next day shipping or same day shipping. And they also get this data from which they can sell advertising, although this data is now in the crosshairs of regulators, I presume.
Absolutely.
So that's a discounted asset. That's
the next discussion about it. Besides, again, a libertarian rant from me. I personally don't have an Alexa working in my house because I just don't like it. But our survey work tells us that now almost 40% of American households have a personal assistant speaker device like an Alexa, and that 14% have used it to buy something. If that looks anything like mobile commerce did 7 or 8 years ago, today 85% of people say they shop with their phone every day. So Alexa's going into cars, it's going into everything, and that's the real prize.
And 40% already is a huge win for them, obviously, in this nascent place. What about the cloud business? I mean, does anything there give you concern about the trends there? Is it losing out competitively? Is this going to remain a headwind?
I'm glad you brought it up. So my partner, Lee Horowitz, in the stock is all over AWS. I'm the retail guy, so to speak. But if you look at one of the concerns of AWS was that the margin stepped back. So that had been the side of the business that had continued to power forward. They've entered a reinvestment cycle there as well, about a quarter later than in retail. So that's something that people will be watching. I think, frankly, today, if the stock doesn't up down, it probably has more to do with that AWS investment cycle starting rather than the retail one, which, frankly, started earlier this year and we already kind of knew about.
All right, Greg, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Greg Mellick, Evercore ISI.
Alrighty, the S&P 500 within just a handful of points of its all-time high. Technology, materials, communication services, they are all leading the charge today. We've got our eyes on that key level, which would be 3028. The record intraday high, 3027.98. Stay with Power Lunch.
Tell them we're flexible. Don't worry. My Dutch is okay.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica, sip margaritas in Mexico, or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. Atoll protected.
Hey, you. Yes, you. We didn't make Nature Valley nut butter biscuits so you could just sit and munch them on the train. Not when there's a whole forest out here to explore. Isn't that right? Go get it! Delicious whole grain biscuits with a real nut butter filling. Nature Valley Nut Butter Biscuits. Get out more.
Be part of the Perfume Shop's exclusive buy one, get the second half price gifting weekend. Buy any perfume in-store or online and you'll get the second half price. Thinking of a present? Think the Perfume Shop for the ultimate finishing touch. Offer ends Sunday the 27th of October. Visit theperfumeshop.com for more details.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin.
With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Trick or treat!
Oh, sorry, this is a Vauxhall Network Q retailer.
But your sign says no tricks, just treats.
Well, yeah. Treats like a £1,000 deposit contribution on an approved used SUV at 9.9% APR representative.
I'm telling my mum.
Well, get her to hurry. Offer ends on November the 4th. And don't forget our 1-year warranty and roadside assist. No tricks, just treats. Search Network Q. Because buying a used car shouldn't be scary. Personal contract purchase, subject to status, T's and C's apply. 18 plus only, Vauxhall Finance.
Welcome back to Power Lunch. I'm Mike Santoli at the New York Stock Exchange. Time for Trading Nation. The Bears taking a bite out of Beyond Meat today. The shares fall over 1%, dipping below $100 in the process. Earlier this session, the stock now about 55% off its July highs as the fake meat maker gears up for its Monday earnings report. Joined now by J.C. O'Hara of MKM Partners and Boris Schlossberg of BK Asset Management. JC, I'll start with you. We have this stock back down to about $100. That's the level from which it really accelerated higher back in June. Is there any significance to the $100 mark?
Well, not yet. I think the ultimate support is a tad lower. But if we go back and look at the price action, to see the history of this chart, this first started in July. We saw a parabolic rise. The stock went from, 25 to 240, ran out of buyers at, 240. And you start to see some profit taking slowly occur. And that profit taking was relatively, calm. But that really started to accelerate a few weeks ago. And no coincidence, it started to accelerate as Beyond Meat broke technical support at 140, right? That is where a level where over the last few months, buyers have historically shown up and supported the stock. Buyers failed to show up this time. As they failed to show up, selling started to accelerate. You broke below the gap higher from June. It entered an air pocket. So I really think the distribution will continue. I'm looking for $85. That is where I think the next support level should start to pick up.
All right, and Boris, so right now the company has about a $6 billion market value. At the peak, it was close to $15 billion. I guess it all depends on what you think the size of the ultimate opportunity here is for this business and whether it can capitalize on it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's feeling more gleeful than the rock-ribbed, red-blooded carnivores at this point because it's almost a round trip on the short. And besides the overvaluation argument, the argument of the shorts basically is that Beyond Meat and Impossible are all essentially kind of genetically modified foods and therefore really not that great for you. But that completely misses the point that the meat supply in this country is fully antibiotic-laden, hormone-infused, and is also very dangerous. So to me, the argument isn't going to be about chemistry. It's really going to be about taste. And the bottom line is that Beyond and Impossible have been the first real, true replicators of the taste of meat. And the value here is really from the producer's point of view, because both alternative meat products are much easier to manage from a point of view of spoilage. This is why White Castle loves it. This is why Dunkin' loves it. And if the consumer really takes to the products, the opportunity here is probably about 13% of the market. That's the forecast of how much it could take over the market. In which case, whatever dip you see in Beyond Meat, long-term is probably very much a buy. Now, if you don't like the volatility in the stock, I think you should maybe do a long-term substitution with like a long-term leap option to see if you can participate in the trade. But I think fundamentally, from a very, very long-term perspective, it's just starting out. I think this is going to be the story to come, as this is going to be very much part of the consumer diet going forward.
Yeah, I was going to say there's been a lot of excitement about trying it. We'll see if those sales pick up in a more enduring way. J.C. Boris, thanks a lot for joining us today. For more Trading Nation, head to our website or follow us on Twitter at Trading Nation. Now, Kelly, back over to you.
All right, Mike, thanks very much. And ahead on Power Lunch, Johnson & Johnson was once the standard for how to deal with problems, but with baby powder coming off the shelves now, has the company gotten it all wrong? And California once again hit with wildfires as PG&E shuts power to try to prevent them. We'll get the very latest. And the NBA can't seem to put the China issue behind it. Every time it starts to go away, someone else says something to inflame it. We'll tell you who's talking now when Power Lunch returns.
And now, the latest from TradingNation.CNBC.com and a word from our sponsor.
During bull markets, many traders find themselves attracted to small cap stocks because they have a tendency to have a higher beta, meaning they generally move up faster than the broader market. But don't overdo it on the small caps because they're also more vulnerable to pullbacks. I'm Joanna Payne, and Schwab is the better place for traders.
So Schwab, tell me about...
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price. Just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn on the App Store today.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every...
And it's a home run!
Single...
And gone!
Game.
And that gone, a home run!
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit...
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone!
Upgrade today.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Sue Herrera. Here's your CNBC News update at this hour. President Trump telling reporters he did not know what was happening with the Justice Department probe into the origins of its 2016 investigation into Russian interference in the U.S. presidential election. But he did have this caveat.
I think you're going to see a lot of really bad things. And a lot of people think that, and they know they have problems because they were very dishonest. And again, I leave it all up to the Attorney General, and I leave it all up to the people that are working with the Attorney General.
Lebanon's Hezbollah leader Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah says that the nationwide protests against the country's political class are being exploited by politicians. He called on protesters to come together and find a representative to negotiate with the government. This after his supporters clashed with those protesters. And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex meeting youth ambassadors from the One Young World group for a discussion on improving gender equality. Those participating in the discussion represented organizations from South Africa, Nigeria, Malawi, and Bangladesh. You are up to date. That's the news update this hour. Melissa, back to you.
All right, Sue. Thank you, Sue Herrera. Let's get a check on the markets here. The markets are off the highs of the session after Kayla Tausche reported that trade hawk Peter Navarro is fighting phase one of the U.S.-China trade deal, pushing for some stronger language. We are on record watch. The S&P 500 is up almost 11 points, or 0.4%, and that is just about 7 points away from record highs. The Dow is higher by 146 points. NASDAQ up by 47, really being helped by those results from Intel.
Wow. CVS, Walmart, and Rite Aid are pulling 22-ounce bottles of Johnson & Johnson baby powder off the shelves after the FDA found subtrace levels of asbestos in the product. Last Friday, J&J voluntarily recalled one lot of the baby powder. That equals about 33,000 bottles, and said they'll work with regulators to investigate the issue. And just the past week, the stock of J&J has tumbled more than 5%. Analysts at Jefferies suggest pulling all the baby powder from the market, similar to what J&J did in the 80s when they were praised for removing Tylenol from the shelves in the wake of several deaths, a move that eventually became a marketing case study for business school students. In fact, joining us now is a man who wrote that very case study on J&J's marketing and crisis management prowess, Harvard Business School's Stephen Gracer. Professor, welcome.
Welcome to the Harvard Business School.
Well, thanks.
It's the only way I'd get in.
Same. Well, we won't talk about Melissa. She's waving her Harvard degree over here. Listen, in this case with the baby powder, what do they do now? I mean, they've already had a voluntary recall of one lot of this stuff. Should they pull all of it off the shelves?
Well, that is what happened years ago at the time of the Tylenol tragedy. But I think it's important for viewers to recognize the difference of that situation to the way that this one has developed. Briefly, when 7 people die, it becomes the lead story on television and it becomes page 1 news in newspapers. And 7 people dying at once and at least at the outset not knowing exactly what from other than Tylenol, but not the specifics, that is news. When people now I want to switch to the baby powder. With baby powder, nobody died immediately, but claims of cancer are serious. So company had to take it seriously, but their view was that they did not have asbestos, that they had passed scientific tests, etc. But with the passage of time, even that situation has changed. So now I want to talk in a moment, if you wish, about some of the other things going on now that make it a time of advocacy groups and others to get companies to pay more attention to potential problems and real problems. But in this particular context, they are in a bad situation now because their reputation is eroding and their market share is eroding, and you always report on what market capitalization is doing, and that has been eroding.
Yes, Professor, they've lost, in fact, $23 billion of market capitalization since October 18th. And this is a period in which Johnson & Johnson and its previously stellar reputation when it comes to products and the consumer is coming under fire, not just because of the baby powder situation, but also because of opioid lawsuits, Risperdal, vaginal mesh. I mean, there's so many products that are being sued over these days. Doesn't that put the onus on J&J to act much, much, much more swiftly and vigorously when it comes to baby powder?
I think vigorously is a very well-chosen adverb. Not that I'm grading you, but I think that what's important to recognize is that a concept which I developed called reputational contagion is something that's happening within J&J. It used to be on the part of consumers and other stakeholders. It used to be that the credo, as they call it, well, many people pronounce it credo, which the Tylenol situation enhanced and led to much praise for the swiftness and directness of being willing to engage in reverse distribution and pull their products off the shelf. That provided, that reputational buffer helped J&J a lot, especially even in the early stages of the baby talcum situation. But as you point out, the combination of circumstances here makes it really important for the company to determine how best to step up now. And it may be taking further action in conjunction with retailers who themselves are taking some of these products off the shelf. and not make it look like there is resistance.
At the risk of interrupting, Professor, if you were to grade J&J on its 1980s response to that crisis, which was visited upon it by an outside bad actor tampering with the packages, and you were to grade their response with respect to talc and the other cluster of issues that Melissa identified, how would you grade them?
I would say that the Tylenol situation not only was an A or A plus for those that allow that, but helped establish the modus operandi by which companies should be paying attention to the ways that they behave in those kinds of troubled times. All we have to do is take a look at Volkswagen, take a look at Wells Fargo, take a look at FIFA, just in recent times, to see entities and organizations that just didn't get it, and they could have learned from J&J. Now your second question is, how much is J&J learning from its own experiences and from an evolving public environment in which advocacy groups and other stakeholders are saying, we want protection. We want action on behalf of the public. And so far, J&J is working hard, but I think the public's views of the credibility of their unwillingness to take vigorous action, those views are beginning to soften. And I haven't seen data. They have. But I would think that what you described calls for them to be graded a lot lower than A, but I'm not prepared to give a final grade yet because they haven't done the rest of what they are likely to be doing under the pressures of right now.
Professor, we'll have you back as it continues to play out. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Professor Stephen Grazer of the Harvard Business School.
PG&E getting crushed today as the company continues to face scrutiny as the possible cause of California wildfires, even as it's shutting off power to some customers to try to prevent those wildfires. Jane Wells joins us now from Santa Clarita, California. Jane.
Hey, Tyler. Yeah, SoCal Edison doing the same thing down here. We just got some information, new information from the LA County Fire Chief, but the governor has declared a state of emergency in Sonoma County in the north, Los Angeles County here. And I want to give you an overview of what we're dealing with down here as we look at the video. The biggest fire down here right now is the Tick Fire, 4,300 acres, 5% containment, 6 homes destroyed. That'll go up. Over 40,000 people evacuated, 13,000 people with their power intentionally turned off by SoCal Edison. That could go up to 380,000. But there is here in the tech capital of the world some new tech tools that firefighters are using this year for the first time, including about a $200,000 pilot program out of UCSD called Wi-Fire with cameras and all kinds of predictive technology, which appears to be working. Listen.
When we looked at the projections, I mean, when we had our press conferences last night, there was a lull in the fire and things looked calm. But the Wi-Fi projection indicated that this is going to take a turn and jump the 14 freeway. And it did exactly what it said it was going to do.
Now look north at the bigger fire, the Kincaid Fire in Sonoma, 22,000 acres, 49 homes destroyed. You've got hundreds of thousands of people up there with their power intentionally turned off by PG&E. That could balloon over the weekend as the winds pick up. Why is PG&E doing this? Well, look at these photos they provide. They say it makes a difference. They've shown photos from previous fires in the last couple of weeks where you had tree limbs on power lines that had been preemptively turned off. Those could have been fires if PG&E hadn't done that. But ironically, while we don't know the cause of the Kincaid fire, there is some suspicion it could have been a PG&E transmission line, which had not been turned off. And folks, the LA County Fire Chief, Daryl Osby, says these power line incidents are responsible for only about 1% to 2% of the fires. And that's a big deal. But when they intentionally turn the power off, it makes it very difficult for fire agencies and first responders to communicate with residents about getting out. So perhaps the right balance has not been found. Back to you.
All right, Jane, thank you.
Jane Wells, by the way, shares of Generac hitting a new 52-week high in today's session, up 81% this year. Vice President Mike Pence says the NBA should have been tougher on China. Charles Barkley says the vice president should, quote, shut the hell up. The latest on the controversy that just won't go away. That's next on Power Lunch.
The Bond Report.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want comedy, coming up. Way better than the dad jokes in this house. Dramas, I've got all the big shows from Sky Atlantic. Or how about football? I've got the Premier League. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus month passes auto renew, terms apply.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the man fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right.
NBA today to start listening.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR Network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Welcome back. The NBA is not putting the China controversy to bed. 3 weeks after the tweet that started it all, the league is still struggling to deal with the issue. Yesterday, President Mike Pence blasted the NBA over its handling of this. Eric Chemi is here with the response from the league and from one of its most visible figures.
That's right. So we had Vice President Pence saying that the league shouldn't be a wholly owned subsidiary of China. And then, of course, Commissioner Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, he had his response to those words last night. Here's what Adam Silver had to say.
I'll just say, once again, we're going to double down on engaging with the people of China and India and throughout Africa, around the world, regardless of their governments. Certainly, if we get to a point where the U.S. government tells us we shouldn't be doing business in certain territories or countries, we won't. But I'm a firm believer that through sports, independent of governments, you bring people together.
So obviously, Commissioner Silver, they're focusing on the NBA's role, it's still doing business, the complexity of how do you do business with China when the government is still doing business with China. But also on set there, you notice Charles Barkley, he's part of that show on TNT. He had a different focus on his comments. Here's what Charles Barkley had to say.
First of all, the Vice President Pence needs to shut the hell up, number one. All American companies are doing business in China. All American companies are doing business in China. I thought the criticism of Commissioner Silver and LeBron James was unfair.
So that was Charles Barkley's response. If you notice, Adam Silver is not sure where to look when that happens. And Ernie Johnson, the host, they're sort of looking at each other. I don't know what to do with this. But I think that goes to the real point, right? There is a complexity. These companies, these countries, they want to do business with China. They know there are problems. They don't know how to deal with those problems. And we're having these conversations.
I may be over paraphrasing what Commissioner Silver has said, but as I read it, he has said, we support free speech. We are not in the business of censoring or censoring all of the individuals in management or on the teams for what they say when they are speaking on topics of social relevance. Now, it's gone very silent, as if a word has gone out. Hey, listen, be careful what you say, because there's business at stake here, which I think, you could say is a reasonable response. But I think he's been a little too harshly criticized. Maybe he's tiptoed around it, but he certainly has said, after his initial comments, we're not going to censor our people.
I don't know what the right answer is. I think everyone's stuck trying to figure it out, right? There's no perfect answer here.
Yeah. All right, Eric, thanks.
You got it.
Well, psilocybin, the key ingredient in magic mushrooms, is right up there with heroin and LSD on the DEA's list of illegal narcotics. But new research into their therapeutic effects is fueling a push for legalization. We will take a closer look when Power Lunch returns.
Hey, you. Yes, you. We didn't make Nature Valley nut butter biscuits so you could just sit and munch them on the train. Not when there's a whole forest out here to explore. Isn't that right? Go get it!
Delicious whole grain biscuits with a real nut butter filling. Nature Valley Nut Butter Biscuits. Get out more.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want movies, I've got blockbusters. Documentaries, I got ones about space, sharks, or superstars. Or how about reality TV? I can fill that island-shaped hole. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus month passes auto-renew. Terms apply.
This isn't the first time, peoples of London. If your al dente means trip to al dentist, or smoke alarm go off when dinner's ready, then you commit crimes against cooking. So thank goodness for Meerkat Meals. Dine out with 2-for-1 on food at your local favorites, like Chicago Rib Shack Wandsworth and Beefeater. All with the Meerkat app when you buy through Compare the Market. Uh-oh, dinner's ready. Sergey, get your coat.
Qualifying purchase 2-for-1 on equivalent starters, mains and desserts, a la carte only, Sunday to Thursday, T's and C's and exclusions apply.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
In the air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Medical marijuana. So last year, the new trend could be medical magic mushrooms, which are now being studied as a possible treatment for depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Meg Terrell's got the details.
Well, guys, it may sound like a throwback to the 1960s, but there is real research going on looking at the potential therapeutic effects of magic mushrooms, or more precisely, their key ingredient called psilocybin. A leading researcher in the space, Johns Hopkins' Roland Griffiths, explained its effects this way. Quote, under supported conditions, psilocybin can occasion mystical-type experiences associated with enduring positive changes in attitudes, moods, and behavior. Clinical trials are underway in conditions from depression to Alzheimer's disease to migraine headache, but it's not straightforward to do this kind of research, as psilocybin is not a legal drug. It's a Schedule 1 in the DEA database, alongside heroin, LSD, and marijuana, characterized as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. But just as there's a push to change that for cannabis, there is movement behind psilocybin as well, and research is still possible. The first cannabis-derived drug was approved by the FDA last year for childhood epilepsy. But there's also a lot of skepticism. Former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb told me, while, quote, there's a proper way to develop these things, some of the hype is outpacing the science we have right now. Guys?
All right, Meg, thank you, Meg Terrell. For more on the business behind the science, we are joined by Ronan Levy, co-founder of Field Trip Ventures. Ronan's also the co-founder of Cannabis RX, which he sold to Aurora Cannabis in 2016 after the company became Canada's largest medical cannabis patient outreach service. Ronan, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
As Meg had mentioned, it's a Schedule 1 narcotic psilocybin. So how do you do research?
Yeah, most of the research is actually happening with FDA guidance and oversight. FDA gave breakthrough treatment status to MDMA as well as psilocybin. So there's clinical trials happening right now on both of those substances, actually.
What is the farthest along the research has gone so far to as effective in whatever disorder?
Yeah, so a trial being led by MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, is actually starting a phase 3 trial, which is the last phase of FDA approval using MDMA to treat post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And the effects are being very positive. I've heard some reports showing that it's showing about an 80% cure rate for PTSD relative to the standard of care, which is typically about
a cure as opposed to a treatment that would mitigate the symptoms.
That's correct. So the standard of care right now is about a 30% improvement in symptoms, and some of these studies are showing an 80% cure rate in certain circumstances.
Do you see a path to legalization for psychedelics more broadly, like in cannabis, or do you think that it should remain under the supervision and the guidance of the FDA, where there is medical scientific research that will be done for specific disorders?
Certainly the path under FDA guidance and through a medical pathway is the most prudent way to move forward, and that's what you're going to likely see sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. You'll probably see that MAPS trial get across the line. 2 other clinical trials are underway with a synthetic psilocybin as well. That being said, there are other initiatives, grassroots movements in like the state of Oregon, for example. There's actually a ballot proposal going forward to create a first regulated market for psilocybin-producing mushrooms in an environment much like medical cannabis.
Have you learned, though, from the medical cannabis route? Because for medical cannabis, I mean, the knock has been that there hasn't been the scientific research that needs to be done, as you're doing right now with psychedelics, and that people are dosing themselves. Mm-hmm. So for any sort of medicine, you don't just go and decide to take whatever dose of drugs. Your doctor actually prescribes it, mm-hmm. and that didn't happen in cannabis.
Well, it did happen in cannabis in certain environments. You know, in Canada with Canadian cannabis clinics and Cannabis RX, we brought a lot of medical rigor towards the prescription of cannabis for medical purposes. And so it can happen in the right environment. And while certainly the evidence isn't the same as, say, a clinical trial for a pharmaceutical that's gone through random controlled trials and all that kind of stuff, you can definitely speak to all of the physicians who have worked in our clinics that will report that cannabis has certainly been the most effective drug they've ever prescribed. So even though the data isn't on the same level, there is a strong amount of evidence to support its use. And the same thing is happening with psychedelics as well. If you look at the studies that happened in the 60s and 70s, there's a strong amount of evidence, in the current efforts through NYU, Johns Hopkins, and the other clinical trials that are happening right now certainly point to a strong case that there's great therapeutic purposes for these drugs.
So what other things besides PTSD might these drugs help?
Yeah, so they're being studied for any number of mental health conditions. Depression is a big focus. 2 of the clinical trials are looking at treatment-resistant depression and major depression disorder, anxiety, OCD, studies next year, which will happen in our clinics that we're setting up right now, looking at the use of MDMA for anorexia. So there's a wide swath of uses for it. There are even some studies that are looking into the anti-inflammatory effects of psychedelics as well. They're potent anti-inflammatory drugs as well, which actually may explain some of their therapeutic value.
Fascinating. Ronan, I hope you'll come back. Thank you very much, Ronan Levy, Field Trip Ventures.
And Check Please is next.
Catch the Market Zone today and
fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phased policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica, sip margaritas in Mexico, or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. At all protected.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto-renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn on the App Store today.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
It's time for Check Please. What are we going to talk about? Other than the market going up, more than 1%, as you just pointed out, for the week?
1.25%
so far, nipping above all-time highs. I guess you say, who'd have thought? There has not been a ton of news flow this week other than earnings, which have been pretty good.
Yeah, and it'll get even stronger in terms of the earnings flow next week, along with the Fed meeting.
Along with
so
the Fed
very,
meeting.
very, very busy week. I'm watching shares of Generac. We mentioned it quickly after Jane Wells' report on the wildfires in California, but a new high on shares of Generac. People are buying their generators, obviously.
The CEO was on Squawk Box this morning, and he said, this is one business line we didn't anticipate, the intentional power outages.
Right,
So,
exactly.
In a way, they're happy for the business there. It's also interesting to look at the leadership. Since we were at the highs in late July last time, it's not technology. I mean, IT is barely positive during that time. It's been real estate, it's been utilities, consumer staples to some extent, driving this higher.
And is that convincing? How the defensive parts of the market lead you?
Home builders, those kind
Is
of
it all because
companies.
of low rates, too? I mean, as we look to the Fed next week, is it just, hey, there was crazy low rates in August and the market reaction to that, and is it sustainable?
Fascinating week ahead.
Thanks for watching Power.
Closing bell starts right now.
That it does. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the closing bell. I'm Wilfred Frost. I'm here at the ABI post today. That stock sinking some 11%, the worst day of the year for Bud so far. We'll be diving into those earnings coming up. But the broader market looking pretty good, up 155 points on the down. The S&P could potentially close at an all-time high with 59 minutes left of play.
I'm Contessa Brewer. Let's take a look at what's driving the action today. The Trump administration says it's close to finalizing its phase 1 trade deal with China. Intel jumped 7% on strong results, helping lift semis to a new record high. And the federal deficit balloons, increasing 26% to just a little less than $1 trillion. Joining us for the hour is Chris Verona, Strategist Research Partners. Good to see you today, Chris. So here we are. We can see it. Yeah. We can taste it, a new record high. And everybody's sort of calm around here.
The lack of euphoria is what's most telling here. That's really been true all year. When you look at the headlines, right, there's this great divide between perception and reality. What are the headlines? The headlines are impeachment, recession, China, PMI's under 50. But the reality is signs of cyclicality are starting to show up in every corner of the globe. You see it with semis, you see it with trucking stocks. German DAX is at a 52-week high. The banks are acting better. So I think the tone of the market is so different than what the tone of the front page of the paper says every day. And I think that's bullish.
Great to have Chris with us for the whole first hour of the show, particularly given that we might have that record all-time closing high for the S&P 500. The key level to keep an eye on, by the way, 3025.9. We are at 3022 at the moment. Let's focus in on the big stories we're watching today. Kayla Tausche is the latest on trade. Bob Pisani is covering the surge in stocks after that news. Josh Lipton, Mike Santoli, and GVA Research's David Garrity are digging into Amazon's earnings for us. But Kayla, let's start with you.
Well, Wolf, principals in U.S.-China trade talks spoke by phone this morning. A readout provided by the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative said the call made headway on specific issues, and the two sides are close to finalizing some sections of the agreement, and that discussions will go on continuously. Of course, President Trump and President Xi are expected to sign that deal in just a few weeks in Chile, but one person is not happy with where things stand, and that's White House trade hawk Peter Navarro. I'm told by 3 sources close to talk that Navarro has been agitating behind the scenes to try to get President Trump to make China commit to stronger language on intellectual property and technology enforcement. So far, I'm told that effort has been unsuccessful. Reached for comment. Navarro called this fake news, but certainly worth noting that there is some agitation behind the scenes. Guys?
Kayla, I guess the key person, if he also was not happy in terms of the president's team, would be Ambassador Lighthizer.
Yes, but Ambassador Lighthizer has also acknowledged that tariffs above a certain level are not sustainable for the U.S. economy, especially given where the economy is in this cycle. While he was an early advocate of tariffs, I'm told that he was not an advocate of the tariffs that were put on in September and the tariffs that were set to come in December, as well as the escalation throughout this fall. So perhaps they're simpatico on that front.
Kayla, thank you.
Let's get to Bob Pisani now on the stocks driving the market to new highs. Bob.
And Kayla's commentary is a very important reason why we moved up today, but not the only one. So let's look at why we're having the rally today, that trade talk optimism, I think the primary reason we're moving up. But there's other things. The excellent commentary about the consumer. U.S. consumer, number one reason the market is holding up around the world. Visa, Capital One had very good comments about the U.S. consumer. And then we had good guidance from Intel. Remember, semiconductors are bellwethers for the global economy, for the consumer economy. Intel's comment also very good, and their guidance was good. There you see Lam Research, KLA Tencor, the semiconductor capital equipment companies. Lam Research also had good comments the other day. Apple's at a 52-week high as well. A lot of industrials, despite the global concerns, hitting new highs. PACCAR, Raytheon, Cummins, Sherwin-Williams, also 52-week highs. Okay, so we got new highs, but where is the volume? Boy, am I getting complaints from Wall Street. The volume is really disappointingly weak for equities, ETFs, and option volumes. I think there's a lack of conviction about where the trade talks are going. I think the market's expensive. Everybody wants the market to either break out decisively or break down one way or another, and that'll get the volume in here. Light volume ETFs, all the big names, the ones you're looking at here, 50% normal volume, half the normal volume this week. Guys, back to you.
Bob, thank you very much for that. See you again later in the hour. Now, shares of Amazon are under pressure, although well off their lows of the session after an earnings miss, only down around 2%. We were down as much as 8% earlier. Josh Lipton has the details for us. Hi, Josh.
So, Wolf, Amazon delivered guidance that spooked investors. Its forecast for Q4 operating income well below what analysts expected. That as Amazon is in spending mode to make good on its goal here to offer Prime members one-day delivery. Says it's going to drop $1.5 billion in the final quarter. The stock in the red, but as you mentioned, Wolf, well off the lows. RBC's Mark Mahaney was on CNBC earlier today saying he would have bought the dip. That yes, one-day investment depresses margins for now, but it's the kind of investment Mahaney's arguing the company should make as it deepens the moat around its businesses. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you for that, Josh. Let's send it over to Mike Santoli for today's market dashboard. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Contessa. Here is what we have. We happy few, and it is a few very giant retail names, including Amazon until today, that have dominated that sector. We'll get a couple of pictures on that. Staying on tiptoes, that's what the market's doing. Both the breadth measures and the indexes themselves touching those all-time highs. And then a gentle condition. This is a look at the credit market, which has been a pretty strong underpinning of the stock market this year. And then finally, the greater share. Take a look at just how good investors have had it over the last decade. So here we go. We have, if you first take a look at two different ETFs tracking the retail sector. XRT is one we look at a lot. It's equal weighted. Every stock has the same, counts the same in that one. The RTH is market cap weighted. That one is vastly outperformed. So guess what? Biggest holding, Amazon, 19.5% in the RTH, but also Home Depot, Walmart, Costco, Target. They are the ones working. They are the ones that have outperformed. And it shows you that essentially it has been a winner-take-most type market. Obviously, Amazon down 1.5% today, but year-to-date, it's been a big, big driver of this one. And then also, since Amazon is both retailer and FANG tech stock, FDN is a ETF that essentially acts like FANG. The traditional FANG names are about 40% of it. That is actually languished. That's in white right here, languished a little bit, whereas the traditional tech ETF, driven by Apple, semiconductors, Microsoft software, has outperformed. So two different ways to see how Amazon is shading a couple of these different indexes, guys.
Mike, I'm not sure about the next couple of themes, but is the first one some Shakespeare, some Henry V?
You might be onto something, well, actually.
But I didn't pick up what Shakespearean references were the latter ones, but I love the first one. Well, we are a band of brothers, Mike.
You would find a read and
on Closing Bell.
You might come up with the answer.
Okay, I'm looking forward to the rest of the dashboard for that. I always look forward to
Brothers and sisters.
We are. But I'm just referencing Shakespeare here.
Right. Shakespeare was not so good at throwing a...
Back in the day.
Right, yeah.
We
need to fix that, is all I'm saying. All right, for more, let's bring in David Garrity, who's the Chief Market Strategist at Laidlaw & Company UK. Great to see you today. When we're talking about Amazon, here when we're expecting tidings of great joy for the retail season, Amazon is delivering some rather Scrooge-ish outlooks. What's behind how they're seeing retail coming in for the rest of the quarter?
Well, we think that in terms of Amazon, historically, they've usually been very cautious and sandbagged going into a forward quarter. And for a name like Amazon, obviously the fourth quarter is quite significant. In a broader sense, it looks as if the U.S. consumer is in fairly good shape with respect to the fourth quarter, with, I think, overall holiday sales thought to be up about 4%. Now, Amazon, given what they've done to strengthen their position in terms of one-day shipping and also hiring 75,000 new workers in the quarter, certainly seems to be gearing up to capture the lion's share of that gain.
What concerned you about the quarter, and why do you think shares have been able to rally intraday?
Well, I think in the vein of what we were talking about earlier, I would say, a tech for this market.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, as we look at what the profit driver is for Amazon Web Services, some people were sort of picking the nits that you've seen decelerating growth there. But I'd make the argument that even though growth decelerated 37% to 35%, top line to $9 billion in the quarter, that still is very strong, and it also certainly confirms what we saw from Intel in terms of Intel seeing strength in data center chips.
Chris, from the chart side of things, when you see an intraday recovery like this for a massive stock, is that encouraging?
It's impressive. The price action from Amazon today, you have to give the hat tip to it. It's reminiscent of Caterpillar earlier in the week, but what I think is notable, this is the second or third time this earnings season where a big bellwether has missed, and it hasn't taken the whole sector down with it. We saw it with Boeing, we saw it with CAT, Texas Instruments, didn't hit the semis. So I like the fact that the market's been able to separate the miss in the stock from the broader industry and the broader group. I think it's a very strong sign.
So when you look at the challenges for Amazon to get these big investments in cloud and in shipping and in warehousing, to get those to pay off, what kind of challenges do they have to overcome?
I think certainly it's a matter of just seeing the execution and obviously seeing at the same time that others like a Walmart don't necessarily try to step up and work from the same playbook or do so as well as Amazon does. So I think from that standpoint, Amazon has the mantle, will continue to hold it. I would say one thing cautionary, and I think Bob Pisani touched on a very good point about how low volumes are as we're reaching up here towards record highs on the S&P 500.
Stepping back from Amazon itself, are you getting increasingly concerned about the political threat to some of these big tech companies? And which ones are most in the crosshairs?
I would argue that, amongst tech, it's a social media issue. It's the fact that these companies really don't accept the responsibilities that news organizations such as this does in terms of providing factually correct information. Obviously, we're not going to see what Mark Zuckerberg's results are until after the close next Wednesday. But clearly, I think Zuckerberg would do his company, Facebook, a real service if he were to say, we will step back from doing political advertising entirely for the 2020 election cycle, and perhaps as a result of that, serve to diminish some of the interest from a regulatory standpoint.
And David, upstairs you were talking to me just a little bit about the access to easy, cheap money right now. We've got a Fed meeting coming up next week. How are you seeing the inflows into the bond market?
Well, certainly if you look at spreads between triple Bs and double Bs, they're not widened out to a point where you would say that this is a recessionary indicator. However, I would touch on the Wall Street Journal article recently that said that rating agencies seem to have been lightening up and making it easier for subpar credits to get access. So is there a risk here at the margin that risk is being mispriced? Do you see a warning bell,
or you're not quite there?
I would say anytime that indications come up that the gatekeepers are not necessarily doing their job, people need to be concerned.
David, thank you very much for joining us, David Garrity. All right, coming up, we're on the record close watch, and here we have the Dow Jones Industrials about up 160 points, 0.5% or so. You can find out where you can still get opportunities with stocks near this uncharted territory.
Up next, we'll get the outlook for bank stocks and how technology is fueling financial growth when we're joined by Wells Fargo's Mike Mayo. And as we head to break, here's a check on our data tracker. Consumer sentiment this month coming in slightly lower than expectations on concerns about the trade war with China. We're back in a couple of minutes.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto-renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card. Which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
Hey, we know that Nature Valley nut butter cups are delicious anywhere. But why just sit in the kitchen eating them? When you could be here, chilling outside in the fresh air with a tasty treat. Oh, good night. Whole grain oats with a delicious real nut butter filling. Nature Valley nut butter cups. Get out more.
Swinging a line drive, base hit into right field.
Way back goes this one. It's got a chance. It's going, and long gone up onto the railroad tracks. Welcome to the World Series.
The excitement of the Fall Classic is here, and you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium. The action begins tonight with Game 3 between the American League champion Houston Astros and NL champion Washington Nationals. Listen live at 8 Eastern as two of Major League Baseball's most storied franchises look to bring home the World Series title. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Touchdown!
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game starting with the Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern and closing out Sunday night with the Packers at the Chiefs at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Welcome back. Citigroup promoting Jane Fraser to President and Head of Global Consumer. The stock's up about 1.5% today, along with all of the banks trading higher. Joining us to talk about the banking sector, Mike Mayo, Managing Director and Head of U.S. Large Cap Bank Research at Wells Fargo. Citi is Mike's top pick. Mike, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this change, and also there's been another high-profile recent change in leadership below Mike Corbat at Citi. Is that a sign that they're doing things well or not?
Well, Citi is doing some things well and some things not. So, look, this quarter was a very difficult quarter for Citigroup and the industry. You had 2 rate cuts, you had a flatter yield curve, and guess what? They still grew revenues faster than expenses. That's fantastic, okay? And that's fantastic for Citigroup and the other large banks like Bank of America and JP Morgan. But what they haven't done well is they still have worst-in-class efficiency, returns, and stock market valuation. But that's an opportunity. We think Citi is rowing in the right direction, but maybe they need to get a speedboat to get where they want to get to a little bit faster. A fresh set of eyes with Jane Fraser as head of consumer has the potential to help.
What's the significance that we've got a change of CFO, a change with the head of the investment bank leaving, and a change now at the head of the consumer? Is that a vote of confidence from the board that Mike Corbat, who sits above all of those, is the right person to oversee the change? Or is that position under threat as well?
Well, I think that goes to what I just said. If you have worst-in-class returns versus your U.S. peers, even if you have qualified individuals, you don't have the right team on the field. So I think it's a matter of getting a fresh set of eyes in a few different areas. And I think Citigroup made a mistake. In 2017, Citigroup said, quote, our restructuring is over. Your restructuring is not over when you have worst-in-class returns. You're now with a new head of wholesale, new head of consumer, new CFO, a fresh set of eyes. That should only be good to maybe re-engineer Citigroup more aggressively. Don't forget, though, there is an activist investor, Value Act, that owns $1 billion. And their information sharing agreement expires in 10 weeks. So they can be friends, they can be foes. As long as Citi moves in the right direction, gets the higher returns that we expect, gets the improved efficiency that we expect, we think the stock can increase by double over the next 3 to 4 years. But if Citi doesn't move in the right direction, plan B could be that Value Act exerts more pressure to possibly make changes at the top. Mike Corbat's not, free here. I mean, the indication is he'll be around for the next 3 to 5 years. Then Jane Fraser could be the first woman as CEO of a major bank. But everybody has to prove their job every day, and that includes Mike Corbat.
You said that Citigroup may need a speedboat to affect some of those changes toward efficiency. Could Value Act be that speedboat?
Well, the way Value Act operates, and we've written about this, is they work behind the scenes. They're the quiet activists. They're not going to be coming on CNBC. But when you look at what they did with Microsoft, it's slow and steady. So they are, the way I view them, as an advisor that also owns a lot of stock. But if push comes to shove, they have held, a proxy contest in the past. We don't expect that with Citigroup. But there could be some quiet influence behind the scenes.
I want to switch focus and talk about another stock that's also cheap and trading at or below book value, and that's Goldman Sachs. Last week, I caught up with Chairman and CEO David Solomon, and I asked him whether he was frustrated that the valuation multiple was so low and not rewarding him for the investments he's been making.
I'm not annoyed. I just expect and understand that in the context of a large public company like this, it's going to be a prove it on this. And I said this on the earnings call, but I feel very good about it, and I think the team's executed incredibly well. We're building for the long term. I feel good about the progress that we're making. Would I be pleased if the world recognized it sooner? Sure, but I don't expect that. I know that we have to deliver, and the onus is on us to deliver over time for our shareholders, and I'm confident we will do that.
Mike, where do you stand on this? On the earnings call, he said 3 to 5 years is the time it takes to see the real return on some of the investments they're making. Do you think it'll come sooner than that? Do you think investors will reward him sooner than that?
Well, look, Goldman Sachs has the lowest non-crisis stock market valuation in its history. So, David Solomon, you're right. The stock market's saying, prove it. So what we as investors need, we need, guideposts along the way. So on the earnings call, he said, well, we'll see in 3 to 5 years if it pays off. That's not enough for investors. The good news is David Solomon's leading a push for more transparency, more disclosure, and Citigroup will have its first investor day in history in late January. So we'd like to see some metrics that they will, show externally that we can track. We're not just going to sit around and wait 3 to 5 years. Having said that, as you said, the stock trades around tangible book value for a company that's grown book value twice as fast as the S&P over the last 2 decades. So it is very cheap.
And you've got to buy on that as well?
Yes.
Okay. Mike, great to see you as always. Thanks for stopping by. Mike Mayo from Wells Fargo Securities. We've got just under 40 minutes left to trade. We are higher on all the major indices. The S&P is standing at 3022. The record all-time closing high, 3025.86. So we're a few points below that. We were above it briefly during today's session, but below it just as we stand with 49 minutes left to trade. Now, SoftBank getting downgraded by one bank, which is calling its bailout of WeWork, quote, throwing good money after bad. The details of that coming up.
And later we discuss how you should adjust your stock strategy if, this is a big if, Elizabeth Warren becomes the president. A few specific ideas from a new report after the bell.
This CNBC program is...
It's time to do a bit of Debenhams with up to 30% off our favourite coats, knitwear and boots for the whole family and 20% off throughout home. Shop now, in-store and at Debenhams.com.
No! The next bus is 18 minutes away.
Look, there's a cab.
We really shouldn't.
Taxi!
I mean, we ate out last night.
Just get in. We're getting soaked.
You're such a bad influence.
You can't always control what you spend, but you can save as you spend with Save the Change. When you use your Lloyds Bank debit card, we'll round up the amount to the next pound and transfer the difference to your nominated Lloyds Bank savings account. Feel in control every day with our mobile banking app. Lloyds Bank, by your side. T's and C's apply.
Heavily covered, touchdown.
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game starting with the Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern and closing out Sunday night with the Packers at the Chiefs at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Swinging a line drive, base hit into right field. Way back goes this one. It's got a chance. It's going, and long gone up onto the railroad tracks. Welcome to the World Series.
The excitement of the Fall Classic is here, and you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium. The action begins tonight with Game 3 between the American League champion Houston Astros and NL champion Washington Nationals. Listen live at 8 Eastern as two of Major League Baseball's most storied franchises look to bring home the World Series title. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
From the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. The World Series continues this evening. 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern is when we're going to get that first pitch. Houston Astros, Washington Nationals.
You don't want to be down 2-0, but here we are. I don't think anybody here is, I think the message is just don't hang your head. We didn't play our best baseball. We don't have time to feel bad about ourselves.
Again, that first pitch is at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. If you want to catch it, search MLB and favorite your team. Even set up reminders so you don't miss a moment of the World Series right here on TuneIn.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Closing bell, let's get to the word on the street now. Guggenheim initiating Uber at a buy with a $40 price target. The firm says it sees Uber benefiting from de-escalating competition in the U.S. and rising prices driving a strong second half of 2019 for the company.
Wall Street keeping its bullish outlook on Amazon despite a weak forecast. Here is a partial list of all these sell-side analysts cutting their price targets but keeping a buy or outperform on the stock. RBC Capital Markets, Goldman Sachs, Credit Suisse, Bank of America, Guggenheim, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Piper, Jefferies, Barclays, Mitsui. You get the picture. SunTrust, the only firm to raise its price target from 2,200 to 2,350, particularly given the stock's intraday recovery makes it all the more Funny that all of those other companies just jumped in on the bandwagon and cut their price targets a little late, of course, as well. And Jefferies downgrading SoftBank to hold and lowering its price target to $20.90 from $26. The firm says troubles with its WeWork investment sets up an undesirable precedent for the company. Unless its strategy is clarified, there is no anchor to valuation. I mean, fascinating on this in terms of SoftBank itself. Talk that they're going to downgrade their holding value of the Vision Fund from 100 billion by 5 or 6 billion. I mean, once you start doing it, as they say, it's a slippery slope to where you end up. And one feels like it's way more than 5 billion they need to write it down just on WeWork alone, let alone Uber and others.
It's a remarkable story. It's almost the anti-speculation story. If this was 20 years ago, fall of 99, would have come, people would have bought it, there would have been confetti on the floor of the exchange. This is the anti-speculation market, so it's tough for us to get too bearish when there's not that euphoria out there. I think WeWork's a great example of that. You bring up Uber. Right now, here's a great stat. There's 26 analyst buys on Uber. JP Morgan only has 12 buys on it. What's a better stock here? One of those is making a 52-week high, one of those is not. I think Mike is right on with these banks. All these banks are getting better, and the analysts don't like them.
On the topic of WeWork, by the way, we should just add the Journal's out with an amazing play-by-play of WeWork's unraveling. Here's one quote. Mr. Newman was surfing in the Maldives when executive in New York called to go over the IPO document. Reluctant to cut his trip short, Mr. Newman summoned a WeWork underling to the Maldives for an in-person briefing. That, of course, according to reporting by the Wall Street Journal. Another extraordinary highlight of this story, if true, and raising the question of these corporate governance missteps.
But you know, before all of this unraveled, there was a lot of talk about what an amazing salesperson Adam Newman was, that he could go out there and he could present and he could sell it. And if this was the price that came along with that kind of salesmanship and creativity and vision, then so be it. And it's only been since it unraveled that it's been called into question as being a problem rather than a solution. I think
corporate governance aspects like that are always a problem. But to your point, I totally agree. To some extent, the most recent settlement that Adam Newman somehow got of $155 million consulting fee, fair play to him if he managed to get that out of SoftBank. But then you look at SoftBank, which is a listed company in Japan. It is a credible company that should have corporate governance standards. What on earth are they doing by going along with it? If this was a listed company, WeWork, there's no way they could get away with some of these reported practices. Because it was a private company, it kind of did, but someone's got to feel the pain from this. And I think SoftBank, we've been focused on WeWork for the last couple of weeks, but SoftBank deserves to be in the eye of the storm.
You know, it's another example of where the board was complicit in all of this, much like we saw in Theranos, maybe like we're seeing in Tesla, right? So there is this complicity among the board. I would note the WeWork bonds sniffed this out weeks ago, right? When they were trading 15%, WeWork was trading as if it was a small cap energy company on the verge of bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So watch the bonds in some of these things. They can be an early tell if the equity's in trouble. Anyway,
the Wall Street Journal article, well worth the read, posted today. 32 minutes left to trade, and we're higher by 166 points on the Dow. The S&P is still 2 points or so, 2.5 points from a record all-time closing high. Been steady there for the last hour. It crossed above that record level, but early this morning hasn't been back up there for a while. Still to come, we've got your last chance trade as stocks try to close at new highs. And Boeing shares continuing to slide. Up next, find out what is behind the latest 737 MAX fallout.
As we head to break, here's a check on bonds and where the yields are across the board, and we're looking higher.
The Bond Report.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every.
And it's a home run.
Single.
And gone.
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit.
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't for the world. And the replays just don't cut
the
it.
Sideline, the man fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right.
NBA today to start listening.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier?
To keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn.
Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites.
Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab.
Pretty easy, right?
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio happenings across the app. Explore exclusive content.
It's called Indie.
Learn about the hottest new podcasts.
The Nostalgia Mixtape, a new podcast hosted by yours truly, Savannah Shroudy.
And get alerted when the big game's about to begin.
This Sunday is Championship Sunday, when we'll find out which two teams are going to play for the Lombardi Trophy.
Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Welcome back. 28 minutes left of trade. We're high for all the major indices. Here are the key things driving the action. The Trump administration says it is close to finalizing its phase 1 trade deal with China. Intel jumping 7% on strong results, helping lift semis to a new record high. And the federal deficit balloons, increasing 26% to just under $1 trillion year over fiscal year.
Time now for a CNBC News Update with Sue Herrera. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Contessa. Hello, everybody. Here's what's happening at this hour. The Trump Organization is exploring a sale of the rights to the company's Washington hotel, a move it says is motivated partly by criticism that the Trumps are flouting ethics laws. They have hired the real estate firm JLL to market the hotel. The company is hoping to fetch more than $500 million for the leasing rights. Governments across the world have pledged nearly $10 billion to help poor nations tackle climate change. This at a conference the United States did not take part in.
27 countries have announced a contribution. 75% of these 27 pledges are an increase, and nearly half, 13 out of the 27, are actually a doubling of the contribution.
And more details now on that deficit story that Wilf showed you. The Treasury says the federal deficit for fiscal 2019 was $984 billion, a 26% increase from 2018, but still short of the $1 trillion mark. The government said corporate tax revenues totaled $230 billion, up 12%, while individual tax revenues rose 2% to $1.7 trillion. You are up to date. That's the news update. Wilf, I'll send it back downtown to you.
I love that video of the monies. It's kind of captivating.
Yes, we love money here.
I know, very nice indeed. I want to visit that plant. I don't know where it is. Sue, thank you.
You got it.
Let's get over to Mike for the second installment of his dashboard. Hi, Mike.
Hello. Well, for all of the market, at least the S&P 500 continues to stand on tiptoes to try to get above that previous all-time high from July. Look at a 2-year chart of the S&P 500, just to give you a sense of the kind of broadly sideways, but with an upward tilt. So here is the January of 2018 all-time high, roughly right about there. And what you see here, Verone's going to laugh at my charting here, but as he probably should, but you had a couple of all-time highs sneaking above this, right? This is about the fifth one, and each one of those at some point kind of dipped back below, right? We definitely did not stay there, although this was very brief. So it seems as if right now we still do have this upward tilt, especially when you look at that trend right there. And one of the things that might be encouraging this time around is the breadth of the market. A lot of people talking about this, but just look at a chart of the cumulative advanced decline line. This is the running daily tally. How many stocks, how many are down? The net number goes in here, and you see this is up until about yesterday. It has reached an all-time high. Don't worry about the units. That's just kind of this running tally. So that basically tells you, as opposed to some other times like last September of 2018, when you essentially had the S&P at an all-time high, but breadth was kind of eroding under the surface. That's not really the case right now. So on an all-in basis, I think that's probably to the positive, guys.
Chris, rate Mike's technical analysis there out of 10, please.
A+, 10 out of 10. I think he nailed it. I think the big key here is when you look at prior highs over the last 18 months, whether it was early 2018, April of 18, October of last year, breadth was eroding and deteriorating under the surface. It's a different story today. You have more stocks in an uptrend right now at any point over the last 3 years. So under the surface participation is broadening out, not just domestically, globally. Europe 52-week high, Japan 52-week high. Things are getting better, and I think it's neglected.
10 out of 10, 100%.
I mean 9.
Okay, 9. There we go. Mike, either way, thank you very much.
We always want to leave room for
Exactly.
improvement. Right.
Exactly.
A new report on the Lion 737 MAX crash is weighing on shares of Boeing today. Phil LeBeau has those details for us. Phil, what are you learning?
Contessa, Tuesday will be the 1-year anniversary from a Lion Air 737 MAX crashing in the Java Sea. And today, the Transportation Department, if you will, for Indonesia released a report on that accident. They said 9 factors led to the crash. We're not going to go through all of them. MCAS was clearly a factor, as was the miscalibration of one of the angle of attack sensors that was feeding into MCAS, and the pilots and how they responded to the events in those chaotic few minutes before the plane crashed into the sea. In terms of what this means for Boeing, well, they've already announced a number of changes, both within the board of directors, the safety committee, the head of Boeing Commercial Airplanes has been replaced. So all of those factors have been taken, those situations have been playing out. But Dennis Muhlenberg, he will be on Capitol Hill Tuesday and Wednesday testifying with regards to the 737 MAX, not only the accident, but how the company has gone about developing this aircraft, their interaction with the FAA. A whole slew of questions will come up, and you can bet it's going to be a rough couple of days for him on Capitol Hill. Shares of Boeing, as you mentioned, are under pressure after getting a bit of a bounce back yesterday. Guys, really, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. And again, he testifies on Tuesday, Wilf. That is the 1-year anniversary of the Lion Air 737 MAX crash.
Yeah, Phil, I agree that Indonesian report perhaps not as damning of Boeing as it could have been. So many other factors at play they point to, although the MCAS system certainly was one of them. I want to switch focus and talk about Tesla. Shares obviously on a tear today, jumping some 10% or so after that unexpected profit in Q3. Earlier today, as you know, Chairwoman Robin Denholm was on Squawk Box and was touting the company's growth.
The company is very focused on growth and very focused on cost reduction at the same time. And it's very unusual to find a company that's focused on both at the same time. And Tesla is focused on that. And so in terms of the chairing of the audit committee, I have been the chair of the audit committee since I joined the board in 2014. And I'm very happy with the way the company handles all of its fiduciary responsibilities and its accounting.
Phil, what was your take on the interview this morning and what it sort of implies for the way the company's managed and whether they have put behind them some of those corporate governance questions that were hanging over the company a couple of years ago?
You know, Wilf, I watched that interview, and what struck me is that Robin Denholm, when she was asked point blank, that question, by the way, was in response to Andrew Ross Sorkin saying, hey, look, a lot of people are saying, how can you swing to a profit when, in fact, your revenue has dropped? I mean, is this not accounting shenanigans, but is this basically accounting that helped you guys swing to a profit? she never really answered the question. Yeah, they did much better on the cost side of the equation last quarter, and that was a huge factor with them swinging to a profit. But in terms of when she was asked, for example, by Becky Quick, what do you think about him not texting as much? And she basically said, well, Elon Musk, we think he's an excellent individual. He's got a unique style. He's very dynamic, etc. But it is what I expected from Robin Denholm. I'm not saying that she can't answer those questions, but I've yet to see an interview where she comes out and says something that you go, wow, I've never heard that before. This is still Elon's company to run.
Phil, thanks so much, as always.
You bet.
All right, here we have about 20 minutes before the bell, and here's where we stand. We've got the Dow up 172 points right now, or a little more than 0.5%. The S&P is up almost 0.5%, and very close to its all-time high. The NASDAQ up 0.5% as well. Up next, we've got your last chance trade, which focuses on one of today's biggest gainers on Wall Street.
You should be mad at Leaf.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms. Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card. Which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
Hey, we know that Nature Valley nut butter cups are delicious anywhere. But why just sit in the kitchen eating them? When you could be here, chilling outside in the fresh air with a tasty treat. Oh, good day! Whole grain oats with a delicious real nut butter filling. Nature Valley nut butter cups. Get out more.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
In the air, left field and deep. He's at the wall!
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the man fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA today to start listening.
Welcome back. We've got 17 minutes left of trade, and we are trading higher by 168 points on the Dow. Last chance trade. Chris, what do you got for?
I like banks here. I like them for 3 reasons. I think rates have bottomed. I think the curve's steepening. Sentiment is still pretty washed out. You've seen a big reduction in shares outstanding in the KBE. And then thirdly, leadership. These things are starting to outperform bond proxies. Look at banks versus REITs, banks versus UTs. There's a turn. It's both domestic and it's global. I mean, the European banks have been the worst of the worst. They're improving. The Japanese banks have been weak. They're starting to get a little bit better as rates have bottomed there. I think this is a hard group to fight here.
If you dive into the big 6 bank stocks, which of those charts stand out for you?
Just think about this from a bellwether standpoint. The most important bank stock in the world is breaking out of the 3-year range, JP Morgan. Also, the laggard of the whole group, Wells Fargo, is also turning, right? So whether it's the best one or the perceived worst one, they're both getting better. We could make the same argument about Europe. The strong ones and the weak ones, both turning. Japan, the strong one and the weak ones, both turning. I would also just note, when you talk about the banks as a group, they've traded like an asset class here. So when one works, they tend to all work.
One bank I just mentioned as well, Contessa's had a great day today earlier, was Barclays. Good reports that they had this morning. Also had a great performance of late because of improving Brexit sentiment. So strong run for some of the UK banks as well. Coming up next, we're going inside the market zone to bring you uninterrupted coverage of the final minutes of trade as the S&P 500 tries to close at that record all-time high. We are at 3023. It needs to add another couple of points to be a record all-time closing high. We're back in a couple minutes.
If you want to know how you could get gold,
Swinging a line drive, base hit into right field. Way back goes this one. It's got a chance. It's going, and long gone up onto the railroad tracks. Welcome to the World Series.
The excitement of the Fall Classic is here, and you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium. The action begins tonight with Game 3 between the American League champion Houston Astros and NL champion Washington Nationals. Listen live at 8 Eastern as two of Major League Baseball's most storied franchises look to bring home the World Series title. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Heavily covered, touchdown.
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game starting with the Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern and closing out Sunday night with the Packers at the Chiefs at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
To the sideline, the man Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right spot.
NBA Today to start listening.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio happenings across the app. Explore exclusive content.
It's called Indie.
Learn about the hottest new podcasts.
The Nostalgia Mixtape, a new podcast hosted by yours truly, Savannah Shroudy.
And get alerted when the big game's about to begin.
This Sunday is Championship Sunday, when we'll find out which two teams are going to play for the Lombardi Trophy.
Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most. From the TuneIn Studios, Fonseca with your daily sports update, reminding you that the World Series Game 3 is continuing tonight. Houston Astros, Washington Nationals.
We don't want to be down 2-0, but here we are. So I don't think anybody here is, I think the message is just don't hang your head. We've
First pitch of this game, 8 p.m. Eastern. Houston Astros visiting the Washington Nationals for the World Series. Game 3. Washington leads the series 2-0 right now. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Just under 12 minutes left of the trading day. We are now in the closing bell market zone. Commercial-free coverage of all the action going into the close. We're also on record high watch for equities. We'll be doing something a little different today and make sure that the S&P 500 is always on the right-hand side of your screen so you don't miss a move. The key number to look out for, 3,025 spot 3,009 would be a record all-time closing high. As you can see, 3,022, which is a couple of points off that level at the moment.
All it takes is a big bet, and somebody's going to drive it over the edge. CNBC senior markets commentator Mike Santoli is here to break down crucial moments for us of the trading day. And we have Chris Verone from Strategas Research Partners here as well. So let's start with the big stock story of the day, Amazon, and John Ford is here to break that down for us. Okay, so John, you have this stock down 9% last night after earnings. It's now climbed back to be only 1.5% from flat.
Yeah, that's right, Contessa, because, I mean, yeah, there's some tough news in here if you were expecting profits and profit growth from Amazon. Amazon switched back to its old self. It's time for some investments. And when Amazon invests, boy, they tend to go all in. I mean, the company talked about adding 118,000 full-time and part-time employees during the most recent quarter, going up to 750,000 total. I mean, that's like a 19% add in one quarter. And then you look at the investment in one-day shipping for the holiday quarter at about $1.5 billion, just incremental. Those are staggering numbers. At the same time, though, you take a look at cloud, which is an area that you look to for growth with Amazon. And yes, while the number might have fallen short of where some people expected, the backlog, the commitments that customers have made to go into AWS, those are really high, up 54% year over year to $27 billion, as high as they've been. So people are going to continue to do business with Amazon, even though this quarter might not have the numbers that some investors were looking for, and then you see it climbing up during the day.
Yeah, John, the question I was going to ask, which maybe has been answered by that stunning intraday climb back to being down only 1% or so, was last night's reaction a sort of suggestion that this company is starting to mature and have investors look at it on a PE basis as opposed to just a top-line sales basis?
Well, you know, Wilf, Amazon tends to have big moves every once in a while on earnings, and then, you know, the investors reassess. I don't know if it's the algos that are moving at first or if people are covering short positions. People remember, hey, this is Amazon. Here's what they do. They find an area, they have tons of data, they test it out, and then they decide to invest in it big. Logistics is one of those areas right now. In the past, it's been cloud. Yes, you've got content as well, but Amazon tends to have a game plan, and they don't manage necessarily quarter to quarter. You can get caught unawares if you're not careful just trying to trade the day.
John, while we have you, want to ask about Intel as well. I think we framed it last night as a surprise and a pop for Intel earnings. What can you tell us about them?
Well, I talked to Bob Swan after I talked to you, Wilf, and it sounds like he was surprised in the quarter, too, that demand really came on pretty strong. He said that about $200 million worth of sales probably got pulled in from Q4, but Q4 still looks better than a lot of analysts had expected. Here's what Bob Swan said about the quarter.
Everything was stronger than we expected this quarter. So if you think about where we were simply 90 days ago, we had a view that the quarter would be roughly $18 billion. But we closed, as you indicated, $19.2 billion, $1.2 billion higher than we expected. And we saw strength across the board. It was the best quarter in the company's 51-year history. The data-centric collection of businesses, which you know is a very important part of our growth story. That huge beat that the street got so excited about, about the size of the incremental increase in spending that Amazon's going to do on one-day shipping in Q4.
John, thanks so much for that. Mike, quick question on Intel. Was this very positive for the broader corporate sector?
Well, the semis bounced a little bit, and I do think that essentially it gave a little bit of reassurance after we did have the miss on Texas Instruments. So, yeah, I do think in general it was positive, although with Intel itself, it brings it right up to an area where it's kind of stalled out a couple of times. So let's see if it can get through.
All right, so shares of VF Corp are sinking on an earnings miss. Courtney Reagan joins us with a look at that stock. What's behind the numbers, Court?
Hey there, Contessa. So VF Corp's earnings and revenue did come in short of expectations as the parent company of Vans, Timberland, North Face, and some other brands. It also left its full-year forecast unchanged, and that disappointed investors. Shares are down 7.5%. Sales from Vans, the popular streetwear shoe and apparel brand, looks to be slowing. Those sales were up 14%. Sounds good, but not so good when you compare it to growth of 26% last year. Sales of Dickies and Timberland brand, and that's in the company's work segment, that whole segment fell about 4%. The company then cut its full-year profit forecast for that work segment. Currently, VF Corp says about 7% of its U.S. sold merchandise is made in China, and the company does plan for that level to fall around 4% next year, lowering that exposure as we continue to talk about the impact of the trade war. Contessa?
All right, Courtney, thank you very much for that. Beer giant AB InBev stock is taking a big hit today as well. Frank Holland has those details for us. Frank, what's the story?
Wait, Contessa. AB InBev shares on pace for their worst day of the year, falling more than 10%. The Budweiser maker giving weak guidance for Q4 after a soft Q3, citing a higher cost of brewing, pressuring its margins. Also, lower volumes in key markets due to price increases and, quote, softer consumer demand in light of difficult macroeconomic conditions. The global brewer of Corona is also exploring brewing that beer outside of Mexico, hard to believe, and it also plans to launch a Bud Light hard seltzer in 2020. Sales of hard seltzer have grown 200% this year, according to Citi. Back over to you.
Frank, there was so much in this miss from commodity costs rising, some issues in Brazil and China, but I thought it was interesting within the U.S. market that we saw market share loss for those traditional brands, Bud Light, accelerate again when some had thought that had started to at least slow down or plateau in terms of that longer term shift to more of those newer craft type beers.
Right. It seems like the beer industry in general for the major brewers, the pressure from craft brewers has diminished a bit. But in truth, a major brewer like AB InBev, they're really worried about their premium portfolio, which showed a lot of growth. They're really trying to push that premium product to consumers so that they can make more money per hectoliter, which is, something you might know over there in England. But just in general, they want to make more money per bottle and can.
You suggesting that English people are alcoholics, or it's a measure?
I think you just do things in hectoliters.
Or that you know your beer.
I think all, sadly.
Right.
That's a perfect person to say that to. Frank, thank you. It does feel kind of right talking about beer with 5 minutes left to trade. But more important with 5 minutes left to trade is where the S&P 500 is. 3022. We are not at the moment going to close at a record all-time high, but we are close to it. The record all-time high, of course, 3025.86. We were briefly above that at around 11 a.m., but we are a few points below it at the moment. Chris Verone, if we do hit a record all-time closing high, does that give the market impetus to go meaningfully higher?
I think there's probably shorts that have to cover out there, but let's just put this in context. Seasonality is an asset right here. Leadership finally is becoming more of an asset as well. It's certainly turned more cyclical. It just strikes me for how much attention the transports and small caps got when they weren't working. It doesn't seem like we're giving them proper due now that they actually start to work. These were missing groups all year. They're now back in the fold. I think that's bullish.
Mike, sorry.
Well, we have a Fed meeting coming up next week. Are we setting up for a pullback here?
I think what's remarkable is you have about 95% odds of a cut in October, yet bond yields have stopped going down. Watch the two-year yield here. The two-year yield has started to turn. I think that's very important for the growth outlook. Two-year yields going up is good for growth. It's good for markets.
Having slipped 2 points in the last 5 minutes, we've added a point back. It's still possible, just 2 points off that record close. Mike, you've been looking at the market internals.
Yeah, we were just talking about the trend in market breadth. If you look at today, it's positive, not particularly lopsided to the positive side. It looks like it's just a marginal beat for the bulls, but 16 to 12 is still obviously another day where the cumulative breadth will hit an all-time high. Chris was just talking about the yields. 10-year note yield as well has kind of maintained its recent lift. So if you look at a month to date, it's at about 1.8, 1.9 is the post-August high. So that's probably also supportive of this idea that things might be getting better and you have a little better in the way of risk appetites. And then also the volatility index, the VIX, we're clicking down below 13 for the first time in a while. Again, bottom end of the range. It shows you the market is on more steady footing. Yeah, sure. If it gets too low, that can be a sign that we're not expecting any shocks and we're complacent. We're not there yet.
We should point out the sector construct today is pretty encouraging. Tech, materials, energy at the top. At the bottom, the more defensive sectors like utilities and real estate. Remind you of that number, which will stay right next to you. 3025.9 would be a record all-time closing high with just 2 points off that for the S&P 500. But let's switch focus to the NASDAQ. Bertha Kuhn's got a breakdown for us.
Where we are seeing a record close, it looks like here, and record intraday high for the NASDAQ 100. And it's really been fueled by earnings this week. We've gotten great numbers out of Microsoft, out of Intel, out of PayPal, and scores of others in the tech sector. Lam Research, chips today at an all-time high. And then, of course, there's Apple that is setting up for Apple's earnings next week. Big expectations as the stock continues to hit all-time highs and is responsible for about 25% of the gains in the NASDAQ 100 this week. Vertex today, also one of those stocks, had an all-time high in the NASDAQ 100. The company having unveiled a new results on a cystic fibrosis drug, just off of the highs now. And we did have an IPO today, Progeny. That's a birth control benefits for fertility, rather, IPOing today, well above the range on the close here. Bob, over to you.
Bertha, 2 lousy points. That's all we need to get a new historic high. And maybe we can get it. Who knows? Look, we're up about 1.2% this week. Third straight week of gains for the S&P 500. Fourth for the NASDAQ. But boy, the volume's been terrible all week. Wall Street is complaining. Equities, options, ETFs, it doesn't matter. These big ETFs like the Spider, biggest ETF in the world, half the normal volume that we would see. You get 65 million shares. Look at that, 36 million shares. That's not great. Russell 2000, same thing. These are the big ETFs. They're used by tactical traders to go in and out of the market. Again, about half of the normal volume that we would see. There's the IVV there also. S&P 500. What do I want to see next week? I want to hear from MasterCard. We're obsessed with the American consumer. Visa had strong things to say, good things to say. Capital One did as well. We'll see what MasterCard says on Tuesday when they report. There's the closing bell. 3023. Looks like we're going to be shy of an historic high for the S&P 500.
Welcome to the closing bell. I'm Wilfred Frost.
I'm Contessa Brewer. And for Sarah Eisen, just 2 points off, but 3 points off, maybe a record on the S&P. And here at the Dow Jones on the floor of the stock exchange, some real characters as Six Flags rings the closing bell with Fright Fest. Along with us today is Mike Santoli, CNBC senior markets commentator. We are in the market zone. You can see the day's market action on the right-hand side of your screen with the stories that are still coming up on the tabs at the bottom of your screen.
Let's check in on how we closed. As Bob and Contessa said, not quite that record all-time closing high for the S&P 500, just 3 points away. But nonetheless, decent gains for all of the major indices, rounding off a decent week of gains. S&P 500 up 0.4% today, up 1.2%. For the week as a whole. The NASDAQ led the charge for the week, and today tech has been a strong performer. The Dow lagging for the week, only just up 0.7%. A couple of big names like Boeing weighing on that performance, but a constructive day and a constructive week for markets as a whole.
And joining us to talk about the market day, Chris Barone, head of technical analysis at Strategas Research Partners, who joins us along with John Petrides, who's a portfolio manager at Tocqueville Asset Management. So, Mike, first of all, so close to breaking a record high on the S&P 500. What's fueling the push higher?
It's interesting, Contessa, because it's not really news-driven per se. It's almost, the gradual lifting of bad news or threats that's happened in the last several weeks. I obviously think that earnings being better than these very beaten-down forecasts, and then the overall market not really suffering when you do have individual misses. That's been part of the story. Certainly incremental progress reported on trade. It doesn't hurt, but I think it just reinforces the idea that we're kind of rebuilding risk appetites after that recession scare in August.
Chris, the geopolitical risk that we've been talking about for months now, whether the trade deal gets done with China, whether Brexit is accomplished, and other geopolitical risks have not been entirely removed, but they've eased somewhat too. Will we see those reappear in the weeks to come?
I don't know. I just don't think the market cares about those things right here. I mean, we've gone through this for 2 years with China, with Brexit for 3 years. I think capital moves on, and capital has moved on in this instance, and you see it in the leadership. The stocks that are at the center of this China storm, whether it's Apple or AMAT or Samsung or Taiwan Semi, are all the leaders here. So clearly the market's focused on something that we may not be.
John Petrides, what's your take on how good earnings season has been thus far and whether it justifies being just a couple of points from a record all-time closing high for the S&P 500?
Yeah, I think with earnings, we're getting what we expected, but it's not as bad as feared.
So on all of the cyclical industrials that have exposure to a slowing global economy and that we're basically heading into or near an industrial recession, well, those stocks are getting hit hard. Look at the likes of Caterpillar and look at the earnings on 3M and others. But then you look at, it's not spilling into all the other sectors. The banks have done really well. By and large, the chips have done well. So we knew that there's a slowing economy. We knew that was going to impact the industrials. And the fear was, will it spill into other sectors? And by and large, you're not seeing that yet, which is why stocks are rallying.
John, what's your take on next week's Fed meeting and how important that is to see the rate cut that the market expects?
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be, let's see what the job numbers are going to be next Friday. I think all eyes, again, should always be on the wage data. Last month it dipped below 3%, which takes a lot of pressure off the Fed to not raise rates. Give the Fed ammunition to raise rates and continue to be putting the gas on quantitative easing, because inflation really isn't transparent. It's not happening throughout the economy. So it gives the Fed a lot of breathing room to force more stimulus into the market.
John, your credit team is noting that high-yield bonds have rallied for 11 straight days, the longest winning streak since April. What do you make of the move on these bond yields?
Yeah, so the good and the bad. The good is that the credit markets remain open and companies have access to capital, and that's a tremendous sign, because if we were heading into recession or in recession, credit markets tighten, companies get shut off to credit, the capital markets, and bad things happen. But on the bad side that investors have to be careful of is if they're stretching for yield, they're going down the credit quality. So, if high yield is rallying, that means the lower quality portion of companies that in a recession could be in trouble. Investors are picking up those yields, and they're taking on more risk to pick up yield, and that's where you have to be careful in a downturn.
Mike, I want to pivot and go back to Amazon. What a stunning intraday recovery. I mean, we're talking 9%, not the couple of percent we saw for Cat in the middle of the week. This is huge.
It was huge. It was a kind of a compressed reaction, because often you do get a shakeout on earnings from Amazon and then gradually it rebuilds. I think part of this is the peak in the stock is $2,050. Okay, so in other words, the stock didn't come into this report built up on a lot of aggressive expectations, with people essentially betting on it was a momentum play. And so I do think you had sort of time and space to sort through the fact that this was not necessarily a completely out of line report. Then you have to filter in the idea. It's a relatively firm tape. I think that Amazon is known for lowballing the fourth quarter revenue estimates. So all that stuff fits together, and it shows you that the market itself is kind of imperturbable right now.
Also on the call, they were making a big play about the investments that they're making, and that there's an immediate cost to making those investments, but then in the long run they pay off, and Amazon has the track record to show that.
The interesting thing is that Amazon has had to send that message and get it across for 22 years since they've been public. And they repeatedly have to do that, because after a while it looks like they're in harvesting mode, and investors think, this is a free cash flow story. Then they have a little bit of a panic when it's an investment phase, and they have to kind of come back and warm up to the story again.
Chris, coming back to the broader markets, you've clearly been constructive in your tone throughout the course of the last hour. How constructive are you? What level of upside do you see for the rest of this year?
Listen, I think this is still a secular bull market. I don't know why over the next 12 months you can't see a market trade to 3,250, maybe 3,300. And when you just think about this week as a microcosm, right? You had a miss in Caterpillar. They try to sell the stock, it acts great. You had a miss in Amazon, they try to sell the stock, it acts great. Last week you had a miss in Goldman Sachs. They had that thing down 7%, and they couldn't keep it there, right? They've had these names on the ropes, and they can't deliver that final punch. When bad news doesn't bring you down, the trend's probably up.
John Petrides, you've been looking at some of the credit market moves, and is that making you constructive or concerned?
Yeah, no, definitely constructive, because, if you look at the spread between the 2-year and the 10-year, we've been positively sloped, although no longer inverted. We're not flat. We're positively sloped, although not heroically high. But since then, the stock market has rallied, and that happened in mid-September, early September. So as we all know, an inverted yield curve usually portends into a recession, and the fact that in the credit markets, investors are becoming a little bit more constructive. So, we continue to keep an eye on what's happening between the 2 and the 10-year, and that relates to the positive movement for the stock market.
And Mike, you're paying a lot of attention about where the markets are in advance of the Fed meeting coming up and what that might foretell.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of interesting synchronicity here. The last 5 Fed meetings we've had back to March, the market came in at or near a record high. Around the time of the Fed meeting, within a couple days plus or minus, you did have the market at least pull back a little bit, roll over a couple percent, 6%. The 2 steepest pullbacks were in May and July, which were also earnings seasons, right?
And do you think the fact that we're at or near record highs sets you up for that pullback?
I think it has in the past. So here's what I think might be different this time, which is the market is not rallying, and you look at what's working in the market, not rallying on the basis of an easy Fed. The market really isn't lobbying for an easier Fed right now, and the market has seemingly bought into this idea that this was a mid-cycle adjustment, the Fed bringing rates down, but not really on a full-blown easing cycle back to zero to fight a recession. A few months ago, that idea was not sitting well with investors because they wanted the Fed to be more aggressive. So I think maybe it would be okay right here if we get another cut and then wait and see.
All right, John Petrides, thank you so much for joining us. Chris Verone, thank you for joining us as well. Appreciate that.
Have a great weekend.
Lots more still to come here on Closing Bell. We'll be weighing up Warren's Wall Street impact. We'll discuss what a potential Elizabeth Warren presidency could mean for the markets and the broader economy. We're back in 90 seconds. Don't go anywhere.
Yakult is created using mystical arts. Firstly, summon the spirits with tranquil hum. Then one must thrice bang the spiritual gong. Lastly, bring forth the ancient all-seeing cow. Should it give a magical moo, Yakult will be delivered to you.
Don't be ridiculous. Yakult was made by a Japanese scientist with unique bacteria scientifically proven to reach the gut alive. Yakult, a little bottle of science, not magic.
Swinging a line drive, base hit into right field. Way back goes this one. It's got a chance. It's going, and long gone up onto the railroad tracks. Welcome to the World Series.
The excitement of the Fall Classic is here, and you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium. The action begins tonight with Game 3 between the American League champion Houston Astros and NL champion Washington Nationals. Listen live at 8 Eastern as 2 of Major League Baseball's most storied franchises look to bring home the World Series title. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
I sure as heck would be willing to pay more tax if I could buy a a happier and less polarized society, for sure.
Would that help?
It would help, yeah. So I think it would help the mood of the country, and I think it would get some focus on real initiatives that we should be doing and grappling with real problems and real opportunities instead of everybody hacking at each other all the time.
That was former Goldman Sachs chairman and CEO Lloyd Blankfein speaking at CNN's Citizens Conference here in New York, making comments on presidential candidate Warren, capitalism, and what he would pay for higher taxes. For more on what Warren's presidency potentially could mean for investors, let's bring in Sarah Bianchi, head of U.S. Public Policy and Political Strategy at Evercore ISI. Thanks so much for joining us, Sarah. Good afternoon.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So what do you make of those comments, that tone there from Lloyd Blankfein, of course, high-profile, successful and wealthy Wall Street executive who's at least partially would be welcoming of higher taxes?
Well, I do think that there are many on Wall Street and in the business community who are concerned about some of the inequality that we're seeing in this country. You saw the Business Roundtable recently make a statement that corporations need to be thinking broader than just their shareholders and thinking more about communities. So I think there is certainly some sentiment on parts of Wall Street and among business leaders that there's something going on out there that their consumers are feeling, their workers are demanding. And so some of that, it doesn't surprise me. On the other hand, of course, we are hearing a lot of concern from Wall Street, in particular around Warren's positions on financial services, on big tech, and some of the other areas that she has outlined plans for.
But look, there were two big things that the Trump administration did for business that they've been pushing for and agitating for a long time. One is rolling back regulation. Two is this corporate tax cut. And it's very hard to raise taxes in this country, to get the two houses of Congress to agree on raising taxes. Is a corporate tax rate safe, even if Elizabeth Warren is elected as the president?
I think raising the corporate rate is very, very difficult for the reasons that you state. Our view is that under the most likely scenario that Warren would take office with a split Congress and including a Republican Senate. And Senator McConnell is basically telling folks in fundraisers that keeping the Senate in Republican hands is the key to a lower corporate rate. So our view is that a higher corporate rate is going to be very, very challenging, perhaps a point or two, but not much beyond. What we do focus.
Well, then on regulation, if this is something that the executive branch can control, and we've seen that happen under President Obama and now President Trump as well, what regulations could she change that would truly affect businesses nationwide?
Well, I think that is where you're going to see real dramatic change. Some of it is more industry specific. So big tech is certainly something that Warren has her sights on. Financial industry, she's very concerned about the rise of non-bank financials. And then in particular, I think you'll also see across the board more kind of corporate accountability. Her view is that the SEC and the DOJ have not been aggressive enough, and particularly going after CEOs and holding them accountable. She believes that business will only really change when they see executives do some jail time. So I think there will be a posture that will affect the market across the board. And that's our view, is that she really can do a lot with executive authority. As you mentioned, Trump and Obama did as well. And I do believe that's really where we'll see her be aggressive.
To that point, Sarah, on executive authority, if the Senate remains in Republican hands, which sector stands out as one where regulation can change direction and shape pretty quickly based purely on executive order and executive direction?
Well, certainly the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which Warren was really her idea, can do a lot, whether it's on student lending or financial services. Dodd-Frank has a lot of authority that you can put into place fairly quickly. She has talked some about fracking, and I think probably would have to moderate some. She said she wants to ban all fracking, but you certainly can do a lot very quickly with EPA and others to deal with federal lands. And certainly her antitrust, although that would take a little bit longer, she's signaled exactly where she wants to go in antitrust, starting with big tech, but then really going beyond to many industries.
We've got oil up right now. We had a guest earlier this week that suggested that oil could be hit hard by new regulations under an Elizabeth Warren presidency. But Strategas is out with a report this week suggesting that she might actually be great for Chevron and Exxon because gas prices would go up.
Well, I think that remains to be seen. Our view is on climate change, that this is not an area where Warren is sort of a long-standing expert, as she is in other areas like financials and like other regulations. So we believe that this is somewhere where she's going to have to moderate. She's taken Governor Inslee's platform, which has some very aggressive targets, and we think she will hear from organized labor on that as well, and probably have to moderate some there. But for sure, the energy sector will be very impacted by really any Democratic administration, but in particular, Senator Warren.
Sarah Bianchi, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate that. We have a news alert right now on the UAW and GM. Phil LeBeau has that for us. Phil, what are you learning?
Contessa, we have learned from sources that the United Auto Workers, the approximately 46,000 members who were voting on the tentative agreement with GM, they have ratified that agreement. That becomes a 4-year contract. So for General Motors, after 39 days, where the plants have been shut down, all of them here in the U.S. and many in Canada and in Mexico, they're going to fire back up this weekend. Again, the UAW rank and file have approved a 4-year contract with General Motors. That's one piece of breaking news, guys. I want to transition you over to Boeing, because Boeing has just announced that it is adding a new member to the board of directors. He is retired Admiral John M. Richardson, the former chief of naval operations. He served in the Navy for 37 years. He is joining the Boeing board of directors. And more importantly, he is also going to be on the safety committee, which has been formed by those directors as a response to what's been happening with the 737 MAX. So a move made by Boeing ahead of Dennis Muhlenberg going before senators and representatives next Tuesday and Wednesday in Washington. Guys, back to you.
All right, Phil, thank you for that. Still ahead, cracks in the credit market. Mike Santoli heads to the telestrader with more.
Plus, we're counting down to the Fed, a 2-day meeting followed by a big rate decision set for next week. What that could mean for you and your money later on Closing Bell.
This CNBC program is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Make smarter.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every.
And it's a home run.
Single.
And gone.
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit.
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
From the TuneIn Studios, Fonseca Daily Sports Update, reminding you that the NBA is on TuneIn. If you want to hear those games, search NBA. Everything's there. Trae Young had 38 points and 9 assists, and the Atlanta Hawks opened the season with a 170-100 victory over the Detroit Pistons on Thursday night.
Trey drives down the lane, lays it up and in, and he got fouled on the play. Tremendous.
Replays and more of these games, search NBA, so you can hear everything. At your TuneIn Sports Update.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the man fleet for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the right.
Search NBA today to start listening.
On this October 25th, or St. Crispin's Day, let's send it to Mike Santoli for his third dashboard of the day.
Very well done, Contessa. These are all from the Henry V speech by Shakespeare on St. Crispin's Day, the famous, as Wolf figured out. You know, a lot of people...
I didn't figure out that all of them were, which was bad of me.
Well, that was me trying to, you know, cut and paste a little bit. But a gentle condition is what pervades in the credit markets, and that's usually a pretty supportive state of affairs. Look at this chart. There's two different segments of the credit markets. This is just the prices now. The HYG is the high yield junk bond ETF. It's been holding up very well, as you can see, just about at a record high. That's not the most sophisticated way of saying how credit markets are behaving, but it's certainly confirming the fact that equities are strong. Now, what's this one? Senior loan ETF. This is bank loans, corporate loans, usually skewed toward leveraged loans, so with riskier borrowers. Some people have been concerned about this little downtrend here, especially this jag lower right here. There's been a lot of supply. You've had some reports that some riskier loans have been held on some of the bank's books. They haven't been able to syndicate them out and sell them. So maybe there's a little bit of stress in this one little area, although I wouldn't say you'd have to get too nervous about it, especially in a market where this week Netflix raised $2 billion in junk debt at under 5% in this country. So clearly there's appetite out there for more speculative paper.
And the point, Mike, that we were also discussing earlier in the week, where there have been pockets of rates spiking up, it's very small in terms of dollar terms relative to the rest
exactly.
of the credit
market. It's pretty targeted. The market seems to be trying to sift among those truly vulnerable borrowers and those that are okay.
Mike, thank you, as always. Coming up next, the Fed in focus, a decision on interest rates due out next week. We'll tell you all the things to be watching out for.
First, hot wildfires threatening parts of California, and Jane Wells is in Santa Clarita, California, with the very latest. Hi, Jane.
Hi, yeah, this is one of the 6 known homes destroyed. It could be higher. The winds are kicking up again. We got a, ring camera on the ground. Fires, as you know, are unpredictable. Look, the plants are fine. The grass is fine. But here in the tech capital of the world, are we coming up with technology to make them more predictable? That when Closing Bell comes back.
Breathe in and out. Every day, you take 20,000 breaths, potentially exposing yourself to harmful particles of pollution. According to the Royal College of Physicians, air pollution contributes to around 1 in 20 deaths in the UK. But at E.ON, we believe it's time to do something about it. We've committed to installing ultra-fast electric vehicle charge points. We offer solar panels and batteries that collect and store energy. And we've helped a citywide transport operator introduce a large fleet of emission-free electric buses. It's time to clear the air. Search E.ON Clean Air.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phased policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every.
And it's a home run.
Single.
And gone.
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit.
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Welcome back. Time for a CNBC News update with Sue Herrera. Hi, Sue.
Hello, Will. Hello, everyone.
Here's what's happening at this hour. A U.S. judge ruling the Justice Department must release the material redacted from former special counsel Robert Mueller's report. He gave the Justice Department a deadline of October 30th to hand over the materials to the House Judiciary Committee. Fiat Chrysler says it is recalling 108,000 Ram 1500 diesel-powered pickup trucks in the U.S., this for coolant leaks tied to reports of some fires and 4 minor injuries. The recall covers trucks from the model years 2014 to 2019. The funeral for Maryland Representative Elijah Cummings was held in Baltimore today. His remains returning to the church where he worshiped for nearly 40 years, draped by an American flag. Former President Barack Obama, one of the many dignitaries paying homage to him.
There's nothing weak about kindness and compassion. There's nothing weak about looking out for others. There's nothing weak about being honorable.
You are up to date. That's the news update. I'll send it back downtown to you. Contessa?
All right, Sue, thank you for that. Wildfires and blackouts are spreading across California, and Jane Wells is in Santa Clarita. Jane, what are you seeing out there?
Contessa actually grew up not far from here. This is just some of the damage from one of the 2 large fires in California right now. Very little containment on both. I want to show you something down here. The governor has declared a state of emergency in both LA and Sonoma counties, and he has set aside $75 million to mitigate the future costs of these power shutoffs we're going through. But while that house is damaged, we've got another one down here. Look in the distance. I don't know if you can see those pink roofs. That is where the Phos-Check, the fire retardant, has been dropped to try and protect those homes. But again, as I said, these hundreds of thousands of people are without power. That is expected to go up over the weekend. But here we are in the center of the tech capital of the world. What technology are we using to better predict how these fires go? Well, there's one new pilot project out of UC San Diego this year. I've got some video of it. It's called Y-Fire. They're spending about $200,000 on it, and it's using a network of cameras and all kinds of predictive algorithms. And LA County Fire Chief Daryl Osby told me it's working. Listen.
When there's a fire start, they can look at the topography, the wind, the fuel moisture, the humidity, and then send us projections in relation to fire growth. And that's really been very useful for this type of incident.
But the big thing is when and where to turn off the power. The power companies are saying they have prevented fires, they believe. At the same time, the Kincaid fire up north may have been started by a PG&E transmission line. The governor is furious, particularly with PG&E. It could be costing the state billions of dollars to have the power shut off. The power shut off, for example, in this neighborhood, even though all the utility lines are underground, guys. One reason they say that is because they're connected to above ground lines somewhere else. It's a delicate balance, and people in California in the short term are going to have to learn to live with it.
And look, you have, when the power is intentionally shut off, you have businesses or homes going out, buying generators, which also potentially could be a fire risk as well. They run on fuel and things like that. Let me ask you, when you're looking at this new technology that can be predictive of fires, one of the best things that homeowners can do is create defensible space. You've got 2 homes behind you that are destroyed and then a whole neighborhood that's not. Are you seeing California homeowners taking this defensible space seriously?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, I live right up against open space. We have a 100-yard fire break. But, you know, you think, oh, maybe we need to change the landscaping. Look at the landscaping, Contessa. The landscaping's fine. The grass didn't burn. The way these fires move, they move overhead. So defensible space around doesn't always work. You know, they've got a new roof. That's not shake up there. So some of these things you really can't get a handle on as a homeowner.
Yeah, the insurance companies are getting a handle on all of those claims and the payouts, too, and it's showing up in their bottom line reports in this earnings season. Hey, Jane, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Jane Wells for us there. Switching gears, the S&P 500 just 2 points shy of an all-time high at the close today, ahead of a widely expected quarter-point rate cut from the Fed next week. Here to discuss what that means for broader markets is Peter Bookvard, Chief Investment Officer at Bleakley Advisory Group. Hi, Peter. How you doing?
Hey, Will.
What's the market pricing in for next week at the moment?
Well, it's pretty much a given based on the Fed funds futures market, about a 90% chance. But while we may get that cut, I think the Fed is going to couch it in, well, we're going to be stopping for now. Because if the Fed is on this, I'm taking an insurance policy type mentality to rate cuts, well, then 2 to 3 is usually qualifies based on historical patterns back in the mid-90s.
And do you think that the Fed is going to be open to more cuts after this decision?
I don't. First of all, I don't even think they should be cutting, but let's just assume that they don't want to fight the market and just going to go with what the market has said. I think they don't want this to be seen as the beginning of a rate-cutting cycle, which would be responding to a dramatic slowdown in growth. They keep having this vision of we're going to create a soft landing. And I think now with the possibility of a light trade deal and a possible resolution to Brexit, there's even more reason for them to pause after the cut next week.
Mike, we were talking about this with Stephanie Link yesterday. I get the point that the market is very much priced in a rate cut, so would be surprised, therefore, if it didn't get it. Yeah. That said, in terms of the issues that are most important to investors, equity market investors at the moment, the last couple of meetings, the Fed had a little bit more focus on it, a little bit more import to it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think right now the data have come in the direction of what the baseline Fed expectations were. It doesn't seem a very acute need. Now, the one thing I would say is if they are attentive to how Treasury yields are trading in the yield curve, getting one more cut would likely, get the 2-year note yield back down to where you want it relative to Fed funds and all the rest of it. So maybe it still feels like an adjustment, but I do think this one is not necessarily a unanimous call and probably will not be.
Hey, Peter, can you weigh in on some of the funding issues that we've seen in the repo market?
Well, I think it's your classic major supply and demand imbalance. You have massive Treasury supply. We saw the budget deficit hitting $1 trillion, just shy of it. So massive Treasury supply and not enough demand. The dealer community, the bank dealer community, at least in the fourth quarter, doesn't want to take on too much inventory. So we can see that they're already loaded up. The non-bank dealers are rushing to get financing to help cover some of those holes. And you have this major imbalance where the Fed is now stepping in to be that buyer to soak up that excess supply, which is essentially monetizing short-term T-bills. They want to call it a new modern-day open market operations, but it's really slowly creeping into the monetization realm. Now we'll see whether in the first quarter, whether banks then step up because they're less worried about year-end funding issues, and maybe some of this pressure could ease. But it's certainly the first time in a long time that massive supply of treasuries is beginning to cause some major reverberations when the demand side is not there to meet it.
Peter, I wanted to switch focus. I know you're very against negative rates. So all in all, with his final meeting behind him now, how do you summarize the legacy of Mario Draghi?
So I guess you can say the positive is that he saved the euro in this whatever it takes approach. But on the other hand, he's killed the European bond market. He's damaged dramatically the profitability of the banks. He's killed the savers. And he's what I think is overall poisoned the entire financial system in Europe. So I think his reputation in the years to come will be tarnished when we see the reverse of this, when rates at some point go back to positive and these incredibly microscopic and dangerously low interest rates reverse themselves.
I'm going to have to say, Peter, just to put a different side to that, I think the whatever it takes created a incredible window for Europe's governments to act to get their economies back on track, that they didn't take that action. And after that, Mario Draghi didn't have too many other options but to continue to suggest he would do whatever it takes to support the currency. And I find it odd that everyone now says, oh, Christine Lagarde's going to come in and encourage all these governments to expand fiscal policy, and that would help save the economies. But Mario Draghi said that in every single press conference since 2012, that fiscal policy spending would help, but he just didn't see any support from governments.
I think it's underappreciated that the damage that he did to the European banking system prevented healthier and quicker growth. You need a healthy banking system to create the foundation for faster growth, and Mario Draghi damaged it. Fiscal stimulus, fiscal spending by the government is only a short-term fix. So I don't think that would have brought European economies to any sustainable rate of growth that a healthier banking system would have.
Peter Bookvar. Peter, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Contessa.
Up next, weighing trade worries. Puma's stock up more than 50% year to date, but it's facing some big problems amid the trade war. We have those details ahead.
CNBC News up.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
In the air, left field and deep. He's at the wall!
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Heavily covered, touchdown. Intercepted.
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game starting with the Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern and closing out Sunday night with the Packers at the Chiefs at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
From the TuneIn studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Dalvin Cook had 171 total yards and the game's only touchdown, helping Kirk Cousins beat his old team on the first try, carrying the Vikings to a 19-9 victory over the Redskins on Thursday night. Yes, we have Thursday night football right here on TuneIn. And if you didn't know, all weekend long we have NFL football. Sunday football right here. To find your team in the game, search NFL and favorite your team. Even set up reminders so you don't miss any of the action. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
Puma says China is its most important market, and now it's caught in the crosshairs of the trade war. Frank Holland has more on that for us. Hi, Frank.
Hey, good afternoon, Contessa. You know, Puma re-entered the U.S. basketball market last year by launching this line of shoes, a real prestige category in footwear, hoping to boost its global sales. And now, as you said, it's caught in the global trade war, facing 15% tariffs on products that it sells here in the U.S. that are sourced in China. Right now, that's 20% of sneakers and other apparel, down from 50% just 5 years ago. But we also spoke to Puma's global head of branding, Adam Petrick. He says it's a balancing act because Chinese sourcing is important to Chinese consumers. And the company gets about a quarter of its revenues from Asia. China, a key driver for the 26% growth in the region. So in order to boost those sales, Puma uses a lot of influencers, including Jay-Z, the rap mogul, and also local Chinese social media stars to drive sales.
We're working to understand the mindset of the consumer there, to understand what's interesting to that consumer, and provide relevant storytelling around our products that they want to buy into our brand. The effects of the tariffs, we're working hard to mitigate those. You can't control that as a brand. That's geopolitics.
And Puma says it's all about millennials in the U.S. and in China. In order to try to reach out to them, they signed a deal with esports brand Cloud9. According to Morgan Stanley, there are 194 million esports fans around the world, and 79% of them are 35 years old or younger, a key demographic for a sportswear brand. Back over to you.
Frank, I guess one of the problems they also have in the US, at least, is one of their biggest sports is soccer around the rest of the world.
Absolutely, Wolf. Number one, basketball is a really hard sector to get into. Nike and Adidas pretty much have a stranglehold on it. Everybody knows Air Jordan. Everybody knows LeBron James. Soccer, not as popular here in the U.S., but the company says it's going to make an even bigger push in running shoes, a category where it can be a lot more competitive, and it plans to have sponsored athletes in the Boston Marathon probably in 2021.
Yeah, for sure. And they're famously, of course, Usain Bolt's brand, and he's stuck loyal to Puma throughout his whole career. Frank, thank you.
Also, thank you, Will.
Usain Bolt, of course, who graced the closing bell set. That was a great moment. Still ahead, the big earnings to watch next week. First, though, we will have a look at the gaming industry and some of the problems that are lying underneath.
We're capping a journey that is nearly 8.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, alright. London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Deep left center field. A grand slam!
October baseball is here, and TuneIn Premium is your ticket to the 2019 MLB postseason. Featuring the home and away feeds for every game, TuneIn Premium delivers every call of the ALCS, NLCS, and the 2019 World Series through the voices of the local radio broadcast teams.
Air, left field and deep. He's at the wall.
Now until a new champion is crowned, hear every play of the 2019 MLB postseason live on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live, regular season matchups and rivalry games, conference championships and bowl games, the college football playoff.
And throw it. He's got it on stiff arm. End zone. Touchdown.
You can listen to it all for free at home, on campus, or on the road. Hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long, free on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
To
it.
the sideline, the man fleet for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA Today to start listening.
Welcome back. Let's send it to Mike Santoli for the final installment of the dashboard. Mike.
Well, the greater share, which you remember is a very cheery part of that Henry V speech where it says if most of us die, then it's the greater share of the honor goes to the few that are remaining. But take a look at the trailing 10-year returns of the S&P 500. So essentially what this is saying, at every point on this chart, this was the annualized return for the S&P 500 for the prior 10 years. So as you can see, over time, it's topped out right here. In the best long bull markets, you've gotten up toward 20% as a trailing annualized 10-year return. Right here, we got up to 15, which is certainly in the upper part of the range, now down around 13. It suggests somewhat later in the cycle, you would argue that maybe you can expect very high returns in years going forward for the next decade. However, because what happened 10 years ago was 2009, the market went up rapidly beginning there. So therefore, just by math, this is probably going to come down a little bit because you're going to be comparing it to a higher starting point in 2010 and so on. So I think it's time to basically say, we're not early in the game, but it doesn't seem like it's at a climactic moment where very long bull markets have tended to end in the past.
Mike, thank you very much. Great theme as well.
Up next, gaming the game. The video game industry booming, but there's one big issue plaguing developers: cheating. The full story when Closing Bell comes back.
Gosh, can we put the heating on?
Sorry, it's broken.
Can I play some tunes on my phone then?
Yeah, afraid not. Play CDs, though.
This car belongs in a scrapyard.
I know, but I get nothing if I scrapped it.
Actually, you can get at least £2,000 off a new Ford for it.
Really?
With Ford's new for old scrappage scheme, you can get between £2,000 and £4,250 off a new Ford car if you scrap an eligible vehicle with us responsibly. Also, there's 0% APR representative on Ford options. Ford. Together, we go further. Search Ford Scrappage. Exclusions apply. Contracted and registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating dealers. Age and ownership criteria apply to scrappage vehicle. Subject to status. Free post Ford credit.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every.
And it's a home run.
Single.
And gone.
Game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit.
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today. Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live. Regular season matchups and rivalry games. Conference championships and bowl games. The college football playoff.
And throw it. He's got it in stiff arm. End zone. Touchdown.
You can listen to it all for free. At home, on campus, or on the road. Hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long free on TuneIn.
Far wing. Elevates. Triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline. The man bleeds for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane. Turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right.
NBA today to start listening.
The video game industry is on a tear with global revenue projected to hit $174 billion. But there's an issue a lot of developers just don't really want to talk about: cheating. Josh Lipton took a deeper dive.
Eliminate the terrorists.
Take a close look. This is the exact same video game, but in the version on the right, the player has special software or cheats that makes it easier to win.
This is the bot behind us. This wall right here, we're going to see him in a second.
In this modified game, you can see the enemy through walls, a distinct advantage. Bill Demirkapa is an 18-year-old recent high school graduate, but don't let his age fool you. He's an expert in hacking video games to create cheats, something he knows could ruin the game.
I don't think that I'm either a good guy or necessarily a bad guy, but I think that a lot of what I do can be interpreted as being the bad guy.
To find cheats, hackers find vulnerabilities in the game's code. It's an advantage people are willing to pay for.
For the higher-end cheats I've made, I've sold them for $100